would fully and thoroughly examine their naked bodies, with members being instructed to cohort their bodies in such a way that they could stare into their anuses through a mirror. What? I don't even know how that works.
That's where Elohim lives.
In the anus. Wow.
The year is 1973, and a French race car driver trudges through a forest slowly, wandering aimlessly with no clear direction in mind. Suddenly, through the wind, a gleaming saucer drops through the sky, piercing the clouds above before landing with a thud. A bright light pours from an opening underneath, and out steps a 4-foot-tall, slightly green humanoid with almond eyes. His name, Yahweh, and he came with a message. Are you interested in hearing what that message may be? Well, you're in the right spot. You're going to have to listen to the rest of this episode of Red Thread to hear his wonderful words of wisdom and what that race car driver gets up to. The answers will shock you. I'm joined by Jordan, Friendly Geordies here still. He's still here, as well as the researcher of Red Thread, Kira. Say hello, Kira.
Hello, Kira.
Nice. Very.
Yeah.
Hey, witty.
Hell yeah.
I bet you've never heard that one before.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I haven't. I'm genuinely impressed.
And he's a comedian, Kira. That's high praise.
I was sitting there just being like, yeah, classic setup.
And I am Jackson, and this is Red Thread. It's the show that's been going forever, and we're still here. This week we're talking about Raëlism. I can't pronounce it, even though I've heard it a million times by this point. Raëlism. It's a cult. We're covering a cult. It's one of the most heavily, requested things for Red Thread is people always saying, please cover more cults. We need more cults. I've heard the feedback. I've brought with me a very interesting cult this week. I thought going into this that this would be a friendly cult, like more of a goofy cult. I've done so many cults where it all ends in like mass, suicide and everyone dies and there's a whole bunch of abuse and tragic circumstances within the cult. And I thought going into this that this would just be a goofy one with a enigmatic or charismatic leader just doing wacky kind of shit. Unfortunately, after spending the last, 10 hours this week researching it, and diving in deep, I misunderstood, and it still is a dark situation under the surface to this cult.
Well, Jackson, if I can just ask,
mm-hmm.
Where does it rate out of 10 in terms of dark cults?
Well, there's not a lot of death, so that at least is good. But there is still a lot of abuse under the surface. So I would say it's like a 6 out of 10 in terms of...
A 6, huh?
I mean, it gets pretty dark in the other ones, dude. I don't know. This is like this is dark, but, there's still like a little nightlight on in the corner. There's still a little bit of light simmering through. Whereas the rest are like, I can't sleep anymore. I wish I was dead. I wish I never read this kind of stuff. Like cults definitely get very dark. This one, not so much, but still dark. It's darker than I would have liked, honestly.
So this is just straight up audience capture at this point. You don't want to do this, but you have been enslaved by patrons and the algorithm to continue reading horror. Is that it?
I mean, that's the entire reason I did this show in the first place, really. So it's my fault, I put cults in the description of the podcast, the premise of the podcast. But yeah, for some reason, cults are definitely a conduit for these dark elements. Even though, like the entire series, Red Thread, we deal with very dark stuff. So I don't know why I'm acting surprised. That's what I signed up for. That's what you signed up for. That's what everyone at home signed up for. I'm just trying to pretend like I'm better than that, but I know I'm not. I don't know why.
Yeah, okay, all right. So it's kind of like you set up Bunnings and then you tried to start selling Hungry Jacks there.
Yeah, exactly. You got to at some point you got to understand that you're a hardware store, and that's what you signed up for. For Americans in the audience, Bunnings is a national museum of hardware items. It's where you go if you want to buy a drill and
oh my
plants.
God, I didn't even think about that. I just chose the two Aussie companies.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't even have Hungry Jacks.
Yeah, they don't.
You do,
yeah,
but we had to rebrand it. Yeah, look, I'll tell you. Look, all right, I know you came here for cults, but you're going to get an obscure Australian history lesson, Americans.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more obscure than Hungry Jacks, Jordan.
Not for us. Certainly not for you, bloody the Sunshine Coast. But like, I'll tell you, it's incredible that there was one guy that laid claim to the phrase Burger King, and so he was able to sue the second most profitable burger joint on earth.
Yeah.
Out of we don't have Burger King anymore. You're not allowed to say it. It's like saying Voldemort. Everyone shudders.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to say Hungry Jacks. And now that I've grown up with it, I got to say, better name.
Hungry Jacks is a far better name. Burger King is pretentious. I thought America wanted to get rid of the monarchy and stuff, but they installed their own king, the king of fast food. Whereas we've got Hungry Jacks, which is just a way more like it's the kind of guy you want to go down and have a beer at the pub with. Hungry Jack. He sounds like a cool dude.
This is you, isn't it?
Yeah,
Hungry Jack.
That's just me. That's why I like it so much.
Hey, Kira, just sorry. I know that we're here to talk about, people getting brainwashed, but just tell us before we go on: Hungry Jacks or Burger King? What do you reckon? Which one?
No, I think Hungry Jacks too.
Yeah. I mean, you're Australian at the end of the day. You can't. Any Australian that says Burger King is a better name needs to be deported immediately, no matter what their nationality is. They're not allowed in Australia anymore.
It is weirdly patriotic, isn't it?
Yeah,
I'm shit McDonald's.
I'm patriotic about the weirdest things I'm starting to notice. Like, I was getting actually angry the other day in the car because Kira doesn't like the $2 snags at Bunnings. You know, like the sausages in the blanket or whatever the fuck you call them.
Yeah, I'm quite offended by that as well.
Yeah, that's so good.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said.
We're gonna air this out publicly right now. God damn it.
We were going out for lunch, so I said I'd rather save myself for lunch.
And I said, no, we're having Bunnings snags right now. In this economy, you want to go out and have a lunch? No, Bunnings snags. No, they're just too good, Bunnings snags. I cannot say no to them every time I pass them. For those,
yeah,
I got to do this a lot, but for the Americans, Bunnings snag, it's the best food ever. Just look it up. You can buy a $2
sausage
in a bit of bread.
Yeah, they don't even have that. They have hot dogs.
Yeah, hot dogs is like the closest thing you could call it, but it's somehow lazier.
It's not. It's like if a hot dog wasn't shit.
Yeah. Anyway, what are we here to talk about? I feel like we're indoctrinating the audience into Australianisms now instead of what we should be doing, which is Raëlism. Okay, so we're going to start off. You haven't heard of this one before, Jordan?
I have the sneaking suspicion that I have seen it on one of those midday cable TV shows. But we were discussing this off air that this man looks exactly the same as every other cult leader you've ever seen. It is a simulation of one.
100%. It's like he was grown in a lab to be a cult leader because he just has that look immediately. And I wonder how much of that is nature versus nurture. Like, a cult leader's born this way, or does the objective of like starting and forming a cult mold them into that eventually? Like, do they all just go by the same guidebook and end up looking that way?
It's kind of true, isn't it? Because you see electricians or you see carpenters, or it's sort of it's a similar type of human being that does that. Maybe it is. You know what? Honestly, it could be what they believe in their own heads, that they are men of destiny.
Oh, 100%.
They were just born to be cult leaders.
100%. I think the most successful cult leaders have to have a little amount of them at least believe in what they're espousing, right? They have to believe in it to be able to espouse it so charismatically. Like, obviously, sure, like 99% of their thought process is fucking over other people and, you know, taking advantage of other people. But I feel like, you know, 10% of them truly believes that they were chosen by some, you know, god to do this, basically.
Well, I don't know enough about cults. I've never really looked into it. I didn't realize that you were such a cult connoisseur, Jackson, by force.
Not by force. I do.
YouTube is a cruel mistress, isn't it?
I am admittedly very interested in like cult dynamics and the psychology that happens within cult dynamics. So it's a very interesting human concept, right? These people having insane levels of control over other people just through psychological, you know, tactics, essentially. It's very interesting. But yeah, so this one was very goofy initially and then gets very tragic. So we're going to start talking about it right now. The story of Raëlism begins with one man, Claude Vorhillon. And there's going to be a lot of French words in this, which are very annoying to pronounce because the letters don't make sense to me. So bear that in mind. Born on 30th of September 1946 in the quaint town of Vichy, Allier, France, to his atheist mother, Colette, and a Jewish father he never knew. Born in the aftermath of World War II, yes, that one, Claude was told by his mother that his father was a refugee who simply needed to keep his identity a secret. However, an Alsatian industrialist funded most of Claude's upbringing, with many speculating that he was his true father through a possible affair with Colette, hence the need for this secrecy. Regardless, Claude didn't know his father. That's the important point that we need to hammer home there. He was born in a fatherless home.
Well, why is that interesting? We know later, or
yeah, we'll know later. But also,
yeah, sorry, I'm already just being like, hey, can you just skip forward?
Just get to the cool part. No, it's like broken homes lead to cult leaders, I guess. That's the point. That's the point we're trying to make here. No. Also, to go back briefly, Alsatian industrialist. When I first read that line, I was like, has Kira made a typo here, or was this like a dog leader or something? Because whenever I think of Alsatians, I think of dogs. But no, apparently that word comes from a region in France.
Alsace?
Yeah, Alsace, I think. Yeah, so...
All right, I've heard of it before, so it does pass the first test.
Yeah, so
Kira might not have made a typo, but she is on notice.
It's not a capitalist dog. It's an actual person that we're talking about here. He had a relatively normal childhood, being raised by his mother and Aunt Therese, but Claude was small and weak compared to his school peers, and this made him the target of bullying. He couldn't really participate in sports and he didn't excel in school academically, but he discovered something that he finally felt a flare of passion for: go-kart racing. This is an important point that we'll revisit later. Were you ever bullied, Jordan?
I bullied other people.
Yeah, I knew that was coming. You were absolutely the bully. 100%.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Gives that away?
Yeah, only your entire career.
I suppose I've made an entire career out of bullying journalists, yes. Which are just the nerds at school.
Yeah, you have a flair for it. You have a flair for it.
It's true. No, I honestly don't think that I was ever bullying. And I bullied in the way that I do now, in a bitchy gay man sort of way. It's very verbal tongue lashing. So I was never.
Well, isn't that what bullying is?
A weak child. There was no way I could ever do it physically.
Yeah. So you didn't attack anyone. You just used your words.
Yes, I used my words,
which is fine. That's fair. Having an argument. Well, it depends. Like, how far did you go?
Well, I mean.
Okay,
how far can you go with words? I don't. You know what though? It's pretty hard. It was pretty hard to be a jock bully at a performing arts high school.
Yeah, that's right. You went to one of those
getting
schools.
In a fight with? The ballet dancers?
Yeah, and surely those schools are right with just everyone's that catty.
Yeah, everyone was a bitch. Everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's not going to happen. Look, I suppose it was just forged in what I knew, like Bane or whatever. But were you guys?
No, not really. Never. I don't think I've.
Yeah, I can't imagine you guys being bullied. Every time someone has been bullied, you can tell. Don't you reckon?
Are you victim blaming right now, Jordan?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do.
It's exactly what I'm doing. But I honestly reckon that there's a type of person that you can tell. Yeah, you didn't do well in high school.
This might be really naive of me, but I feel like just from my own experience through high school and school over here in Australia, and I'm not sure if it was just the region that I was in was maybe more friendly, but I feel like bullying has to be a larger issue in America.
Why?
I don't know. I just feel like because I didn't experience and I didn't see it like at my school, then it mustn't happen here. But I know that's not true. But I feel like I just like all the media that comes out of America, it all seems so like vicious and violent over there, like to a crazy degree where I feel like bullying has to be like just more of a common thing over there. I'm not sure.
You can't watch an American 80s or 90s film without there being a guy in a red and white jacket that's on the football team pounding a nerd against lockers.
Yeah, it's such a trope. And whereas I never witnessed that myself over here. Nothing. No swirlies. No nipple twisters. Nothing. Nothing cool.
Oh, well, come on. Like, you've had a nipple twister before in your life.
Yeah, but that was just from my dad.
So your dad bullied?
Yeah, my dad did the bullying. Yeah, I mean, it was just like, yeah, I wouldn't count that as... My nipple twisters were just all fun and games. That wasn't bullying.
That's the difference. Look, I it's really strange to me because I feel like now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, there was a lot of quote-unquote bullying actions at school. I really don't think that you can be a male and get through school without at least a couple of wedgies, a couple of sack whacks.
No way.
Maybe one or two rear admirals.
Okay, maybe I did get bullied. I remember getting sack whacked. Maybe I'm just too stupid to realize I was getting bullied.
That's what I'm saying. That's like, it's an action of bullying. I think it has to be consistent.
No, but it wasn't like, it was just kids doing dumb things. Like we would sack whack each other and shit like that. It wasn't like bullying. Kira, what about you?
Yeah.
I was bullied in primary school.
Okay, never mind. Bullying does happen over here. My queen.
Bullying certainly does happen over here.
Yeah, maybe it's...
Some girl, was it?
Yes.
Some big girl?
I can't remember that.
Now it's your chance to bully her back 20 years later.
Yeah, make her out to be much uglier than she is. and tell 100,000 people.
All right, but the real issue for little Claude, the guy we're talking about, the real issue for him was was growing up was the lack of attention he received from girls. He felt scorned by this rejection, and he grew a chip on his shoulder when it came to romance. Yeah, that kind of stuff is way more dangerous to young men than bullying, in my opinion, as we see in the modern era. Like that's the real issue, is whenever like they don't get girlfriends or they don't, have success in terms of romance, that's far more dangerous than a few nipple twisters. This need for attention and validation will follow him throughout his life, all stemming from these early years. It had begun by constantly seeking validation from his mother throughout his upbringing, and as he got older, he wanted that same attention from girls his age. His mother became overwhelmed by Claude and ended up rejecting him, in quotation marks, at the age of 3. Ooh, fuck, that's rough. That's so rough. No wonder he's got a chip on his shoulder. His mum rejected him at the age of 3 and got rid of him. Brutal. She sent him to live with his aunt, who often remembers and describes him as an, quote, angelic child. The two women still to this day don't think highly of each other, with Colette blaming Therese for raising a monster, and Therese believing that Colette is a heartless woman with no maternal instincts. Both can be true, by the way. That's not a one or the other kind of situation. Clearly, Therese probably didn't have any... Colette didn't have any maternal instincts if she got rid of her child at the age of 3, whereas Therese, I think, probably coddled Claude in response and kind of fucked up his upbringing to a certain degree by coddling him to the degree that she did. Regardless of who was at fault, Claude didn't have the best experience with women inside and outside his family. The desperate need for approval led to him employing some classic strategies. For example, he learned how to play guitar, but only to impress
that's
girls.
Classic.
Yeah, it's such a trope, isn't
classic.
It? Yeah. What's the greatest extent you've gone to like impress women in the pursuit of dating them? I'm talking like in your teen years, probably like at the same age he was, because every university student does the whole guitar thing. I think
this crush of a chick that I had in year 7, I spent my pocket money to buy a rose bush, and I tended to it so I could give her a rose for Valentine's Day, and then it didn't happen, and then I forgot about it, and then. Like one day I looked out my window and I was just like, holy fuck, the whole thing's just like a secret garden. Like it's just an entire thing. Anyway, that was the extent that I went to once. I thought about doing something romantic and forgot.
Yeah, okay, that's impressive.
Well, any better gestures than that?
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I think if I want to go like super cringe, I think like in 5th grade for Valentine's Day, I spent like 30 minutes creating an email. ASCII art where you could make symbols and stuff or pictures out of like symbols on the keyboard. I made like a romantic love heart kind of art thing out of ASCII art and sent it to my crush at the time. I did not receive a response. So it didn't go over too well. But yeah, that was, looking back, that was probably like the most cringe kind of thing that I did.
Yeah, honestly, you got off pretty lightly, man. I've heard some stories.
Yeah, me too. Kira, what about you as a woman?
What have I done?
Yeah. Who have you been talking to?
I don't really remember doing anything.
Yeah, of course. The woman
you don't
privilege.
Have to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just got given roses and emails with hearts in them and stuff like that.
No.
And didn't reply.
Yeah, didn't reply to me. Who had the last laugh now, though?
Lots of MSN messages, I'm imagining.
Dude, MSN. Oh my God. Yes. So many messages. All right. Regardless. However, somehow this blossomed into a small but relatively successful singing career for Claude. He was particularly inspired. What'd you say?
That's awesome.
Yeah. He somehow turned cringe into an actual career.
Yes, yeah, he did it.
I didn't get shit from my email.
Good for him. Yeah, I know. You just got an embarrassing memory.
Yeah.
That's it.
He was particularly inspired by the Belgian singer and actor Jacques Brel, who had a very emotional and theatrical way of singing. At the age of 15, Claude left his family behind, hitchhiking to Paris, where he spent the rest of his teenage years singing and performing in the streets. His persistence paid off, and Claude was scouted by a talent agent, leading to him signing a record deal contract. God damn it, this is way cooler than anything that I did in the pursuit of love. Yeah. Is this episode about UFO cults making you feel sick to your stomach? Wondering about all those damn UFOs out there? Well, you'll need to book a doctor for that. Luckily for you, ZocDoc is sponsoring this episode, and boy, there's not a better way to book a doctor than ZocDoc. Think of them like a doctor dating app, but without all the swiping and without the dating. Please don't try to date your doctors, especially not on ZocDoc. It won't work and you'll get in trouble. No, disregard all that. ZocDoc is simply the easiest way to make appointment bookings in the modern era because all it takes is a few minutes. You don't need to wait on hold with a receptionist. You don't need to comb through the internet to find a reputable doctor in the first place. And you don't need to spend valuable time researching if the clinic takes your insurance because ZocDoc makes it all accessible so you can spend less time stressing and more time, well, getting better. ZocDoc is a free app and website where you can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors and click to instantly book an appointment with them. You can filter the doctors by those who take your insurance, those who are located nearby, who are a good fit for your medical concerns, and those who are highly rated by verified patients. Once you find the right doctor, which usually only takes seconds, you'll be able to quickly see their actual appointment openings, choose a time slot that works for you, and click to instantly book them. Using ZocDoc, you can make a booking within minutes, and you can even score same-day appointments, meaning you'll be in and out as quickly as possible so you can get back to what matters the most, and that's getting better. If I was sick, I'd be using ZocDoc right now to make that booking because I do not like to make phone calls to receptionists, so simple as that. I'd be using ZocDoc for it. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/redthread to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/redthread. Once more, that's ZocDoc.com/redthread, linked below. And now, let's find out more about those UFOs. He released 6 singles under the name Claude Keller, with some being minor hits within France. But this wasn't Claude's ultimate dream. That laid in racing. There was a small problem, however. Motor racing costs a lot of money. Simply put, Claude couldn't afford the career in racing that he wanted. Claude stayed in the motorsport scene, but moved his focus to journalism, founding the magazine Autopop in 1971. In 1971, this was quite a year for Claude, as he also married his first wife, a nurse named Marie-Paul Christini. The two had moved to Clermont-Ferrand, where Claude set up his publishing house, and the magazine was actually relatively successful, allowing Claude and his family to live comfortably. Claude knew that this was his chance to connect to brands, and he would exchange advertisements for him driving their cars and races. The outcomes of his races during this time are limited in terms of our knowledge of them, but it's clear that he wasn't an outstanding generational talent driver, though he does claim in his book to have 10 trophies from his time racing. But to Claude, this was the dream, and he was satisfied. Did you ever have a dream?
Yeah, at some point in my life.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a YouTuber?
They kind of apparate out of your 30s.
Yeah.
No, I didn't want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
My big dream was one day I'm going to be on breakfast radio in Newcastle.
Wow, what a dream. What a dream.
The heights.
Yeah.
You know what's pathetic as well? I honestly remember a time when I was I'd have to be one of the biggest YouTubers in Australia. And like this man, I had the dream of being on radio. And so we went to some shit radio station in the mountains. Me and my friend Mislav, and we would do their drive home show for free.
Just to put your foot in the door in radio.
Just to put my foot in the door in radio.
You had this like very successful career on YouTube, right? In an incredibly growing market, and you looked at radio and said, "I want in on that that dying fossil."
Yes, in a non-syndicated station as well. It was basically just community radio. It was a commercial station, but that was it. Went there, and they fired us. I still to this day can't believe it. It was honestly just like,
how bad were you?
You know, it's weird. It's really strange. It's like if, I don't know, like fucking PewDiePie or something just walked into some shithouse like community TV station, was like, "Can I be on it?" And they were just like, "No, fuck off." You know, it's like, what? Like, who have you got that's better to replace that?
Why are you disrespecting
I'm sorry, I'm still to this day, I'm pissed off about it. I understand why people start cults. I really do.
I understand how you can feel disrespected in that situation, though. You're doing it for free, and they're like, no, not worth it.
It's told us to fuck off.
How badly did you screw that up?
Look, to be fair, it was because Mislav, there was a couple of things. The first one was that there was an on-air point where he was just saying he was doing an ad. I think it was for LJ Hooker, which is a real estate agent. And then he comes on, and then for 3 minutes gushes about, "Oh yeah, Ray White. They saved us so much money with our house. Ray White are the healthiest. They're the best people that I've ever dealt with." And then at the end, I said, "Dude, that was for LJ Hooker." And then it just went to air. And it just went to air. And they paid like 10 grand for that.
He wasn't seriously, like, he wasn't doing it on purpose. He just misread the name or something.
No, he wasn't doing it on purpose. No.
Well, I'll let him keep the job then.
One time we had to do like some live crossover at some, I don't know, some power station or something opening up. I can't remember what. And he just turned off the entire radio station and didn't realize and kept.
Right, yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't my fault at all. We did get fired for like very legitimate reasons.
Yes, I would fire you in that situation.
Now that I think about it, fair enough. They should have got rid of it.
You were a detriment. You weren't.
Such a
you cost them a $10,000 like advertisement with LJ Hooker. It doesn't matter that you were working for free in that situation.
Gave it to their biggest competitor for free.
That's like a suable offense, I think. A breach of contract. All right, that's pretty.
Wait,
funny.
did you guys have dreams?
Yeah, I mean, sure. I wanted to be a paleontologist growing up.
Oh, of course you did. Yes.
Yeah,
all the pieces are coming together.
Yeah.
It's honestly not a bad dream. I really do like the fact that you're into dinosaurs, Jackson. It's very cool isn't the right word, but
it's not cool.
It captures the imagination.
No, it's just, yeah, I mean, I can't help it. I am who I am. I've come to peace with it. You know what I mean? There's no changing who I am at a fundamental level. I am a nerd. I do enjoy nerdy things. That's fine. I'm happy with that.
Do you know heaps about dinosaurs or no?
I used to.
Yes, he does.
I used to know a lot more, but yeah, I mean, I know more than your average person for sure.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, so
I mean, your fascination didn't end at 5. You kept going.
No,
I assume you know a little bit more about the Latin names.
Yes, I do. And
hell yeah,
is it becoming more confusing as to why I wasn't bullied growing up now? I feel like it should be. Kira, what about you?
My dreams are very basic. I wanted to sing and act.
Yeah. It's
the standard dream.
Yeah.
Standard dream.
Very standard dream. But yeah, I mean that's you now you're doing it. You're acting on the show in a way. You've made it.
Yay.
All right. No, this is career suicide, this show, I'm afraid. You'll never work again. Right. Okay, so that was until December 1973 when France enacted a temporary ban on all auto racing until further notice. That really puts a damper on things when you own an auto racing magazine. For those curious, this was enacted by the French government in response to the global oil crisis that was happening at the time. In response, the French government put into effect fuel-saving measures, including banning all non-essential fuel-consuming activities and stopping motorsports. The magazine could not survive, and it ultimately closed shop in 1974. Yeah, that's a classic example of France overreach there. French overreach. They went too far. Where's the French guillotines? We need to bring them back out. We're taking away our racing cars. That wouldn't fly in the modern era.
That would really piss you off, wouldn't it?
Yeah, if it got in the way of me enjoying F1, yes, it would.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, whatever.
See, both you and Kira really empathize with this cult leader, don't you?
Yeah, I'm ready to join up.
A singer race car driver.
Yeah. If only he wasn't French.
If only he wasn't a giant creep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also the creepy aspect of him, for sure.
When one door closes, another usually opens, and in Claude's life, this is incredibly true, though, in his case, the door that opens would start to become more and more concerning. Raëlism began in 1973 when Claude was 27, experienced a supposed interaction with an extraterrestrial named Yahweh. Yahweh is the name of God in the Hebrew Bible. He was walking through the Puy de l'Isère volcano in central France, which is known to be a bit of a UFO hotspot locally, when he saw a flying saucer in front of his very own eyes. Over the past few decades, there has been an increase in UFO reports. For example, in 1954, there was a period of time known as the wave, called the French UFO wave outside of France. Okay, well, that's a very important piece of detail. Thank you for that.
I need to make sure. The wave is so ubiquitous. That could refer to anything.
That's true, yeah. That's true. There are a lot of waves in the world, I'll give you that.
Have you heard of it? Have you heard of the wave?
I've heard of the Belgian wave.
Yeah, the Belgian wave I've heard of as well. I didn't know that there was a French version of it. I guess every country's had their own, surges of UFO activity that they've reported on, which I'm sure in each of those countries they would call the wave.
True. FYI, this is a very interesting tidbit about French culture. They're much more open to the idea of UFOs, and they have always taken it a lot more seriously than us in the Anglosphere.
Why is that?
I don't know. But I think it says something about them.
Yeah, well,
French are weird, aren't they? It's like, if we're chimpanzees, they're bonobos. You know?
Yeah.
You can sort of see them. They're sort of like simultaneously a classier, more sex-craved version of us.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call them classier. I think they just, like, they believe that they're classier. Like, they have this element of airiness. Oh, not airiness. What would you call it? Like, hoity-toityness in the scientific terms to them, where they see themselves as classier. Yeah, I think so.
They definitely do see themselves as classier, but I don't know. You listen to their language, and it's clearly better than ours.
I mean, it does.
Well,
the language
it's not better.
Cool.
Like, I think ours is better at describing things, but theirs is much better at. Everything sounds very poetic and nice.
Yeah, but how much of that comes down to the culture of the, the 50s, 60s, and 70s, where that was all romanticized heavily through media?
Okay, dude, you can't drop that on me right now. That's like a really deep red pill to swallow.
How much of your belief that France is very classy has been pushed onto you by the media, Jordan?
I don't know.
Romance movies. Yeah, make up your own mind.
I just thought that I did, but you could be right. You honestly could be. They could have just like pushed the Vietnamese language is romantic and we would have thought it. I don't know. Which I definitely do not think.
I think you'd be a very easy cult convert if that's like a convincing argument to you.
I really don't like that you said that, because I also think the same thing about me. Every time I ever hear anything about Scientology, I always think like, yeah, well, maybe I should just go read a pamphlet. Like,
yeah, it can't all be bad. Tom Cruise is in there.
Well, that's always the best advertising point for Scientology, don't you think? It's Tom Cruise. All those stars can't be wrong.
No, all these intelligent, charismatic, handsome people. I want to be in that club.
Don't you think?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Interestingly, going back to how France takes UFOs seriously, they became the first country to open up their files on UFOs in 2007. And they have a dedicated website where you can fully like go into detail about if you saw a UFO and what it looked like and everything like that.
So that's endorsed. That's like from the French government themselves.
Yeah,
all of their like military documents and stuff, I assume.
Don't know if it's all their military documents, but it documents more than 16,000 sightings over 5 decades. That was from 2007.
I think culturally that's a big difference between France and the United States. Or maybe it's just, look, if I'm going to get really conspiratorial, I think it's because the US have something to hide. But I think that... this has always been fascinating to me, the fact that in France, all their UFO sightings go to their version of NASA. And for like 80 years, all of the sightings went to the CIA.
Whereas in the US, it's the Department of Defense or the CIA that handles all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting.
Like, I don't know, they're like curious about it. And
yeah, but how much of that is a ploy by the French government to try to make themselves look cooler to you, Jordan?
It's definitely worked if that's the case. I mean, it's a long game to set that up decades before I was born.
I'm taking a hardline anti-France stance in this episode.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know why either.
You decided to be oppositional.
Yes. Unnecessarily oppositional towards the French. Like they haven't had it bad enough already.
Between October and November, where multiple UFOs have seen in quick succession, leading to a sort of social paranoia, the sensationalism from these events in France persisted for decades to come. As for why Claude suddenly was invested in the topic, well, he was apparently talking with a friend and collaborator, and the topic of UFO sightings and reports came up, and this alone put the simple thought into Claude's mind: could this sensational topic be the answer to his desperate need for attention and fame?
So he saw opportunity. He didn't come at this from a curiosity-driven angle like Jordan here would. Like if a friend was talking to you about that, you'd be like, you'd want to learn more. Whereas Claude looked at this as an opportunity for him to take advantage of the situation. Oh, here you go. Oh, also, on screen right now is a picture of a flying saucer over France, photographed over Rouen, France, at 08:13 hours on March 5th, approximately between 1954 and 1957. What do you think, Jordan? Is that a picture of a flying saucer? You're our UFO
like putting this
expert.
on record, but yes, I think that is
100% confirmed.
I do. It's pathetic, but that is my opinion. Yes.
I think it's like
I don't like doing this show. It's really like I feel like it's just you're relaying a therapy session or something. This should be my private thought.
No, it's good. Get them out. You'll feel lighter for it. To me, it looks like, what do they call those? Like the French trays that you serve food on with the lids on them. I don't know what they call them.
Oh my God, you're right. It is.
It's like
exactly
a serving lid.
Yeah, serving lid and dish that they've thrown up into the air and taken a black and white photo of. It looks exactly like that to me. But hey, maybe that's what the maybe the aliens were watching romantic French movies as well, and they were inspired to create their flying saucers in the shape of French culinary tools and dishes. Who knows? Okay, please.
Yeah, the mysteries of history. Right? The volcano mountains were located nearby to his Aunt Theresa's house, where he and his pregnant wife were staying in December of 1973. It was around this time that Claude took a solo stroll through the area, and it was here that he supposedly encountered a UFO that descended from the sky in front of him. The following excerpt was taken from Intelligent Design, Message from the Designers, a book written by Claude about his beliefs and experience.
I'm going to get Kira to read this segment because she has the beautiful radio voice that we all wish we had.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry for taking this away from you guys.
All right. She's an actor. This is what I'm making your dreams come true.
The object continued to descend without the slightest noise until it stopped and hovered motionless about 2 meters above the ground. I was petrified and remained absolutely still. I was not afraid, but rather filled with joy to be living through such a great moment. I bitterly regretted not having brought my camera with me. Then the incredible happened. A trap door opened beneath the machine and a kind of stairway unfolded to the ground. I realized that some living being was about to appear, and I wondered what it was going to look like. First, 2 feet appeared, and then 2 legs, which reassured me a little, since apparently I was about to meet a man. In the event, what was at first I took to be a child came down the stairway and walked straight towards me.
Oh, dude, that's so lame. If I'm going to meet an alien, give me like a blob monster or something with like 1 million tentacles and 16,000 eyeballs. Don't give me like a 5-year-old child, a human child. That's so boring. That's so lame. That is so lame. You couldn't come up with something better, Claude?
I could see then this was certainly no child, even though the figure was only about 4 feet or 1.2 meters tall. His eyes were slightly almond shaped, his hair was black and long, and he had a small black beard.
What? What? Like a goatee?
Yeah, like a little goatee.
Okay.
I still had not moved, and he stopped about 10 meters away from me. He wore some sort of green one-piece suit which covered his entire body, and although his head seemed to be exposed, I could still see around it a strange sort of halo. It was not really a halo, but the air above his face shone slightly and shimmered. It looked like an invisible shield, like a bubble, so fine that you could barely see it. His skin was white with a slight greenish tinge, a bit like someone with liver trouble.
Oh no, this alien was dying from alcoholism? That's sad. He came here to get like life-changing surgery maybe. Earth is just rehab for aliens trying to avoid whatever is causing their liver trouble. Anyway, this alien Yahweh had a message for Claude. All life on Earth was created 25,000 years ago by aliens named the Elohim, which is another term for God in the Hebrew Bible. So it's pretty clear where Claude was getting all of his inspiration from. Aliens who had advanced technology, the Elohim, allowed them to create life as well as everything else on Earth. And we have, luckily for us, Claude did record the initial conversation with Yahweh. He transcribed it, so we can read it right now. I'll be Yahweh. Jordan, you can be the Frenchman, Claude, since I feel like you're better at doing accents.
Thank you for recognizing my talents. Where do you come from?
From very far away.
Dude, you're making him sound Jewish.
What? That wasn't Jewish? What do you mean? Well, it's on point.
So apt. Huh?
It's on point. I mean,
It's on point. I
his
just
name's
didn't
Yahweh.
think you'd go there. Hell yeah, dude.
I didn't even mean
Let's keep
to.
this up.
I didn't think that
Yeah,
that was...
I know. It was a complete subconscious Freudian slip, and I'm very proud of you for it, Jackson Subconscious. Let's continue. That was awesome. Well, I don't know if we can top it, but we'll continue on.
I don't know if I can do it again.
Do you speak French?
I speak all the languages of the earth.
Come on, it's just Woody Allen. You're not being an alien. I mean, you are, but it's very apt for Yahweh. You
It's
know?
Woody Alien.
Yeah. Yes. Oh. Do you come from another planet?
Yes.
Is this the first time you have visited Earth?
Oh no.
Have you been here often?
Very often, to say the least.
Why did you come here?
Today, to talk to you.
Thomas?
Yes, to you, Claude Vorilon, editor of a small motorsports magazine.
All right, well, now you're just doing a Blinky Bill voice. Stupid
I can't
child
consistently do a voice.
Editor of a small motorsport magazine, married and father of 2 children.
That's very specific. Fuck, I can't do voices. All right.
Ah.
All right, so that's a very, very specific answer. Editor, he knew that maybe the alien came here specifically because he was a big fan of that small motorsports sports magazine.
Seems it.
In his books, Claude describes the meeting as having been orchestrated by Yahweh, using telepathy to steer him into being in this exact spot at this time. Yahweh then invited Claude aboard the craft. And inside, he noticed it was bright and the light was overwhelming, but Claude was unable to identify any light sources. That's some crazy alien tech, yo. The floor was a bluish sparkling alloy. And there was no sight of any machines or instruments. There were 2 chairs, completely translucent but comfortable to sit in. Wait, translucent like see-through? Why? Was the alien trying to get some upskirts of Claude? What's the point of translucent chairs?
I don't think it was like completely translucent, but kind of like, it looked like plastic.
Okay. Yahweh touched a spot on the wall and suddenly everything became transparent, leaving the 2 in what seemed like open air. This guy just read like Wonder Woman comics or something and was immediately inspired by the invisible jet. Boring. This meeting with Yahweh spanned 6 days, with Claude being taught the beliefs and the history of the Elohim. And remember, the Elohim are the species of aliens that this Yahweh comes from. The Elohim claim that they themselves live in a scientific utopia, and the spiritual belief of Raëlism, the belief that Claude here will come to follow, teaches that humanity can also live in this very same bliss, and they too can achieve immortality from the technology of the Elohim, technology like cloning. Yahweh revealed to Claude that the Elohim tasked prophets and messengers to guide humankind to a successful future. These prophets and messengers consisted of all of the big names that you've come to love. Jesus, who was the son of...
We all know and love.
Jesus, who was the son of one of the Elohim, Moses, Muhammad, the Buddha, and now in 1975, for the first time in galactic history, you can guess who the next prophet would be. Yes, Claude himself.
Yes.
Yes. Claude
Yes.
explains that he was chosen because he had a Jewish father and Catholic mother, making him an ideal link between 2 religions/ideas that existed in the world, and as such, the Elohim identified him as a fantastic option. I really sincerely doubt that Claude was the first child of a Jewish father and Catholic mother.
It doesn't seem like that rare.
Yeah,
of a
it can't be that rare. Like the Elohim were out there waiting for the one time that a Jew would make a child with a Catholic person. I doubt it. Anyway, that melding between those two religions created Claude, and that's what they cared about. The Elohim also recognized Claude as an intelligent and free thinker, and they appreciated that he was not anti-religious, as the Elohim themselves did not believe in religion. Well, why the fuck did they care if it was a Jewish and a Catholic parent system? That doesn't make sense, right?
Look, they have their ways. It was a brief conversation.
Yeah. I'm playing devil's advocate here. I know that they have a very concrete, foolproof argument. Claude does, but I've still got to do my job and poke holes in it where I can, okay? He was also not a science or literary man, meaning that he wouldn't overcomplicate things unnecessarily, which the Elohim appreciated as well.
When I read that in his book, I was like, is he calling himself stupid?
Well, he just called himself smart first. No. All right, Cloud was given the name Raël, and he was given the big task of being their final prophet. The prophet to end all prophets. The Elohim warned Raël that after the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima, did not see that coming up in this episode, but okay, the Earth was entering the age of apocalypse, and humanity was at a pivotal crossroad. One road would lead to it destroying itself, and the other road would see mankind living in peace. Yeah, but I feel like you can say that about every single situation in human history, right? Humanity is a history of conflict.
It's now that I'm reading this, it does sound like a very stock standard origin story of a cult leader. I don't know why it's always like this weird mix of aliens, past religious figures, and oh my god, guys, the world is going to end.
Well, so I think they choose aliens because people truly do want to believe aliens exist, and when you want to believe something is true, then you are more likely to overlook the logical inconsistencies of whatever the person is saying, right? You yourself do that with alien theories, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Sometimes the brain is able to very easily convince itself that a logical argument is illogical simply because you want to believe the thing that you're thinking about. So I think that's and cult leaders are usually very intelligent, and they usually do know exactly what to do to manipulate people. But at some point, it is also just a raw numbers game where if they speak to a bunch of UFO nutters, in quotation marks, not saying every UFO person is a nutter, but there are definitely people out there, especially in that time, who were very, over the top with it. So they would be more likely to believe what Claude is saying. So I absolutely think he took advantage of the situation that was brewing in France at the time to co-opt UFOlogy as a means of making his whole shtick more convincing.
I suppose you're right. It is just a numbers game, isn't it? And also, the 70s does seem like the right time to start a cult.
Yeah.
It seems like if you weren't part of a cult in the 70s, were you really in the 70s?
Well, I think
it can't all just be the Partridge Family, can it? Which in itself sounds like another cult.
I think cults have shifted now. Like the cult of personality, which is what cults always were historically, has just shifted now into just the online realm, right? Like forums and things like that, or even just your favorite Twitch streamer. Like there can be a cult that forms around that. And what it's done is cult leaders don't even have to necessarily be motivated by actually leading a cult. They don't have to actually go in with the intrinsic desire to create a cult. It means that cults can kind of just form around an idea now or a person without that person even intending it.
That's very true.
So I think that's why we're seeing
like everything else, like the internet's made dating. You don't even have to bother embarrassing yourself anymore because there's Tinder. It's very easy to become a celebrity now. It's very, very easy to become a cult leader.
Yeah.
In fact, every time you ever read any of this stuff, and you're right, you do go on Twitch, you look at the comments and you look at the personality that is there, and it's like, man, you are just Claude, but you didn't bother to dress up in the nice white Paul Atreides from Dune clothing.
Well, you don't even need to do that.
You're just in a singlet.
We need to bring the charm back to cults. We do need that element of wearing those white robes and pretending like you're speaking to aliens.
Yeah, and I really like the photographs from the 70s of that, and them always just like with the fingers on their chin doing that kind of Rizzler face and levitating. It's great. It was way better like that. I hate this lazy cult stuff.
Yeah, lazy cult. Everything's become so
Lazy cult.
so soulless. Everything.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no
Bring
art
the
to
soul
cults
back
now.
into it.
There's no art to
Back when cults used to be cults instead of just content.
it. You sound like a weird boomer right now arguing for cults to be brought back to their most oppressive state. Raël had to warn the other humans of their possible dark fate. He was to wait, learn, and write everything down into a book so he could defend himself against non-believers. Yahweh told Claude that the Elohim loved mankind and they wanted to be loved the same way in return. As Raël asked questions, he learned more about this utopia that Yahweh came from. Robots did everything for them there, meaning everyone was free from the burden of working and performing annoying tasks. There was no crime, no police or prisons, and their lives were truly just devoted to leisure. A big part of their culture was love and sexual expression. There was no judging and everyone was free to love and make love freely. God, that sounds great, right? Who doesn't want that? All thanks to robots. I love the fucking naive idea that if we just had robots to do everything, crime would vanish. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
No, that's not how mankind works. It is in our DNA. Like, there's so much variables with mankind that you can't just fix it by everyone having everything they want. Like, some people are just born to want to fuck other people's lives up. Like, that is sometimes just an intrinsic want of some people. So what's going to happen in that society? You know, that's not going to stop that. There's going to be crime still. Crime's not something that you can just immediately get rid of. Or, sorry, entirely get rid of.
Yeah. It also sounds like everybody on this planet would be extremely poor, except for this sort of leisure class that owns the robots that comes down to Earth as a tourism spectacle.
Yeah. Wait. Why do they even care about Earth in this situation? They've got such a perfect utopia where everyone's fucking and loving each other and there's robots doing everything they need. Like, why would you even go to Earth at that point?
He's got to have an explanation for it, surely.
Yeah, we'll find out. All right, so this quote is from Claude being given the name of Raël. Kira, would you like to take it?
You, Claude Vorlhon, will spread the truth under your present name, which you will replace progressively with Raël, which means literally light of God. And if we translate it more accurately, light of the Elohim, or ambassador of the Elohim. Am I saying it right?
Which, Elohim?
Elohim?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sounds right. I think there's...
Yeah, it's close enough.
There's like two... I've heard of two pronunciations of it, and yours is one of them, so keep going.
Okay. Because you will be our ambassador on Earth, and we will come only officially to your embassy. Raël can be simply translated as messenger.
Okay, he's got all the answers. Okay. Raël was told that we humans living now were not the Elohim's first attempt at building a civilization on Earth. The population that grew from the creation of life 25,000 years ago became violent and corrupt, leading to the Elohim deciding to wipe out and essentially reset the experiment 13,000 years ago. Raël was told that Noah's Ark was an almost true story. The only incorrect detail regarding the story was that it was actually Noah's space rocket and not a boat. So that's pretty cool. I do love when cult leaders go back and retroactively make the Bible cooler. Like, if you're just going to use the Bible,
is that common? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. They all use the Bible as like a jumping off point to kind of rationalize it because there's a lot of people that believe in the Bible, so it's easy to take that and kind of say, yeah, some of it's true, but what if I'm also Jesus? And then people are more
so they
likely
sort of
to
just
believe it.
upgrade the Bible in the same way that you would an antique car.
Exactly. Bible 2.0.
Bible 2.0 stuff.
Yeah. It's
right.
like
just pimp it out with some spaceships and aliens.
Yeah, you know how people go online and read like Harry Potter fan fictions and they love that and they see that as a continuation of the canon, basically. It's like the same thing. People will read other people's interpretations or additions to the Bible and then believe that if they're so inclined to, if that's what they're looking for.
Yes.
All right, so Noah was told to build a spaceship, and he was also tasked with collecting DNA samples from animals and plants to later be used in the next attempt at populating the Earth. Everything on Earth was destroyed besides the samples that Noah was able to get into his spacecraft. So, wait, so the Elohim aren't very nice people if they destroyed Earth 13,000 years ago. Why the fuck did they go through all that effort of destroying Earth when they have an orgy utopia? Like, what is the point? I don't understand why they're even doing this. Although I guess I do that with my games of Sims as well. Like, whenever I'm playing The Sims, I do. Like, my life is pretty cool, but I still fuck around with The Sims' lives in their simulation whenever I'm playing that. So I guess that's fair.
Yeah, and you're a pretty good guy.
Thanks,
and yet you do it anyway. So
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
It was a failed experiment. That's how they saw it.
So it was a bad game of Sim. It was like I made my character not cool enough for me to continue playing with. So I was like, drown him in the pool.
Yeah. I really don't understand why violence and corruption warrants a failed experiment, though.
Yeah, isn't that
Maybe that's
also
just because
kind of
I'm
on
human,
you?
though.
If you have the ability to send your messengers to kind of guide us in the right way, surely you could come do that and help us on the right path, like you are with Claude right now, instead of ending all life on Earth.
Yeah. Maybe you could have just told us about cops and corruption watchdogs, and then you didn't have to destroy the planet.
Also, wiping out all life on Earth. What did the elephants do? What did the dinosaurs do? Why'd you do that?
Yeah, I hate that idea of them just being these innocent bystanders, just punishing because we suck.
Yeah, it's
You're so
a
right.
dumb concept.
Well, killer whales suck as well. They can go. There's a few animals that I think, no, you definitely commit sins. You know what you're doing.
Oh, dolphins.
And dolphins.
Swans.
I think that's pretty much it.
Cockroaches.
It's just chimps and dolphins. Cockroaches, easily the most intelligent animal.
Mosquitoes.
Well, okay, they can just go. I don't care.
There doesn't need to be any motive.
Do
on
they
their part.
have any use apart from being one of the things that frogs can eat?
No, I legitimately think mosquitoes. I think there was research done into this. What do you call it? Like biodiversity and the ecological health of the world would just be better if mosquitoes didn't exist.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I think I could be wrong. Fact check. I read this ages ago in a paper that it was shown that the health of ecosystems is just substantially better if mosquitoes don't exist in them.
Okay, that's really interesting. I always had that very childlike idea that
Everything has its
in the
place.
ecosystem has its place. That's so it turns out get rid of autos and it'll work better or something.
Well, no, if something is too efficient at what it does, then I think it does just become a detriment to the system that it exists in, like us, kind of, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, we're much more damaging than mosquitoes, surely.
Yeah, damaging to mosquitoes with my fly spray.
Hell yeah.
The Raëlians would later make a manga called... Wait, what?
No.
Yes. The Raëlians...
here it is.
The Raëlians would later make a manga called Humans Were Created Scientifically as a free brochure to explain the original meeting between Claude and Yahweh. And on screen right now for video listeners... And I think we also have video on Spotify now, so you can also watch it on Spotify. I'm going to put on some snippets of the manga up on screen. Hopefully we don't get copyright struck. Please, Claude. We're spreading your good word. Please don't hit us. There'll be pictures of the manga up on screen right now. Yeah, it's a full-on manga that they've created here, showing the meeting between Yahweh and Claude. And I do love how they portray Claude to be a very attractive individual with nice luscious hair and a nice beard, and then Yahweh is also a very Jesus-looking figure.
But Claude is way more handsome than Yahweh.
Well, which one's Claude? I think Claude's the one with the jacket on, whereas Yahweh is the one with the straight hair.
Yeah, with his hands open.
Yeah, it just looks like a band member of Korn or something.
Yeah, he looks like a former co-host of Red Thread. Really. Anyway.
Yeah.
Raël was told that the Elohim achieved immortality through cloning. The Raëlian movement believes strongly in scientific advancements, rejecting the idea that your soul passes on to a different world or existence post-death. They believe that the reincarnation of Jesus Christ was actually achieved through cloning. So they believe that he didn't come back to life through the miracle of God or anything like that. They believe that he was cloned in the early biblical days.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm convinced. I don't need any more information on that. That's good. Due to this, the Raëlians have actively advocated for furthering the cloning technology on Earth. However, they also believe that cloning shouldn't be available for everyone. Immortality for the minority, oblivion for the majority. What the fuck? That goes so hard.
Damn.
Maybe it is a lead singer
That's
of Korn.
so unapologetic. I've never heard anyone be so naked about
I
these
thought
issues.
they were arguing for a utopia where we all get to bang, not death for everyone. What is this?
If you deserve it.
So you have to. Why, if we deserve it? If you've got the technology, I thought the argument was everyone. Okay.
But that's like a classic cult dynamic, yeah? That everyone else will die if they're not part of it.
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense in the terms of trying to convince people to come on board. Like, hey, everyone's going to die, but with us, you have immortality. You just have to practice our beliefs. I do want to ask, immortality, are you pro or against it?
Pro purely because I'm a coward.
Yeah, you're scared of death?
So scared of death.
Yeah, what a pussy. Kira?
Conflicted.
Conflicted. You're just going to fence it?
You can't fence it.
come
You
on.
have to pick one.
Oh my god.
Right now, this is determining the rest of your life. You gotta live
Yes,
by this belief.
this hypothetical that will definitely happen.
Without like going into the, I don't know, like the problems behind what it would cause, I'll say yes.
Damn, okay, I'm outweighed. I say no. I think even though I am terrified of death, and especially death for my loved ones, and if I could choose to have immortality for my pets, absolutely. But for me, I couldn't think of anything worse than living forever, like existing forever. I don't know. That just sounds like way too much. And I think it takes a bit of the beauty out of life as well, right? Like, I think things matter more when they're fleeting. So yeah, I know that's kind of like a
But is it the
pretentious
type
answer.
of mortality where you can't die?
Well, that's what immortality means, right?
Okay. Well, when there is the inevitable heat death of the universe,
Yeah,
and
you'll
you're
exist
still
after that.
alive. Yeah, no, I can't do it then. No,
I've
I'm out.
changed.
I'll crack the magic century and be happy.
Yeah,
with that.
there would be literally no downside to immortality if you could just choose to turn it off and die. Like, absolutely, there's like no downside to that, right?
Well, it's not the choosing to die. Yeah, okay. Look. Well, then no one would choose that. If somebody sat you down and said, here's what's going to happen. At some point, the earth is going to explode and you're going to be gasping for air for 1 trillion years before the universe collapses in on itself. And I don't know what happens after that, but it can't be good.
I feel like at least 50% of people would still choose immortality in that situation. It's a very contentious debate.
Still, if you explain that to them.
Yeah, 100%, because humans have this thing called hope. At least that's what Star Wars has taught me. And the hope would be that we would come up with technology to prevent that existence from happening. And then you get to enjoy and reap the benefits of immortality, especially if you're in a world where immortality is an actual thing that exists. At that point, it's kind of like, all things are possible, right?
Yeah, I guess so. That's true. Yeah, all right, I'm back on board. I'll roll the dice.
I'm trying to subscribe you to a future where you just float in space for trillions of years. Go wild, just absolutely mad with lunacy from your isolation in the.
Oh my god! If you
void
did that,
space.
I would hate you so much.
You'd be up there for trillions of years thinking.
It's trillions of years being like fucking Jackson. Can you imagine the hatred?
That would be such an epic form of me bullying you.
Oh, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's
Wouldn't
like,
it?
That's got to be worth. Like, by the time you get back, you're gonna have to give me one hell of a titty twister to make up for that. Yeah, let us know in the comments below what you would choose, just for a bit of viewer engagement there. I'm curious though if it is a 50-50 split between people choosing immortality or not, because I feel like it is, and I'm specifically talking about the circumstance where you do have to live forever. Would you still choose it? Okay, So, on the other hand, though, they suggest that criminals who have died could also be cloned and brought back to serve their punishments, which does tend to muddy the waters on their messaging slightly. So, wait, it's immortality for the minority, oblivion for the majority, and the minority includes criminals. Yeah, okay.
Crims.
Okay, cool.
Violent crims, too.
Yeah, bring them back. Why not? I get the idea to extend their punishments, but I don't know. There's something unethical about that, I think. The Elohim themselves can live up to 750 to 1,200 years, and the select few that are given the ability to live eternally are restricted to live on the planet of the Eternals. That's what it's called, the planet of the Eternals. So, yeah, I guess you're given eternal life, but you can only live in one place. Basically, heaven, right? That's just heaven.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same concept.
I guess so.
Okay. So on October 7th, 1975, Raël met with the Elohim again, and he was taken to the planet of the Eternals this time. Here in this idealistic world, he met the prophets, recreated from Earth after their deaths. This means he met and ate with Moses, the Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad. He also
Man, how lucky is he that his shitty Autopop magazine failed?
Yeah, I know. Imagine that. He could still be a journalist.
Is so much better now. Yeah. He's a motor journalist.
He also met some of the robots. All right, wait.
And they were also cool.
Yeah, and they loved him. Everyone thought he was really cool. He also met some of the robots who were drawn in the manga as women in revealing clothing, which existed to, quote, take care of the dirty and odd jobs and to serve any kind of request. Okay, so they were fuckbots. Cool. He was taken on a tour around their gut. Wait, so Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, and Moses are all up there having orgies with robots? That seems kind of blasphemous to me. He's like...
Yeah.
He's throwing every religion on the bus in a way here.
Immediately. Yeah, telling on all of them. It was all a scam.
Raël was taken on a tour around their gardens, and here he learnt that Yahweh was their leader, often referred to as their president or prime minister. Okay.
Man, what a tiny country.
It was here as well that Raël learnt the truth about his father. Yahweh was his father. Oh my God. Wow. I didn't see that
And
coming.
when was this released?
What do you mean? This was released
This is
in
1975. When was Star Wars?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Star Wars was the 70s. Yeah. Star Wars.
Nah,
episode-
1977. Okay, so George Lucas stole from him.
Yeah, George Lucas was a Raëlist.
He was a realist.
Yeah.
And no respect for the founder either.
I think maybe the book came after this, honestly. So maybe, he probably took... No, I mean, he's going to, regardless of what happens in Star Wars, he's obviously going to claim that he's like the prodigal son because that's good for the cult.
Yeah, of course.
That increases the likelihood that he'll convert others. So the story of this goes that on Christmas in 1945, Yahweh had brought Colette, Claude's mother, on the spacecraft, impregnated her, and then took her back home and wiped her memory. When was Men in Black released? That's he had a neuralizer or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, he did.
Yahweh also dropped another truth bomb on Claude. He had a brother, Jesus. That's not me exclaiming in response to that. Jesus was his brother. This second encounter really changed Claude, who embraced his image as a new prophet, and his life as Raël began now. This is a quote from Therese on Yahweh being Raël's father. Quote, I know my sister, little green men weren't her type. So there's some contention in the Claude family about whether or not Raël was born to an alien. Okay. So since this original meeting and the subsequent creation of the religion in the 70s, Raëlism claims that there are now more than 130,000 members in over 120 countries. Source, please. Is that true?
That comes from their website.
Okay. So that's self-reported. Gotcha.
Yeah.
300 of those members are guides, essentially leaders within the Raëlism movement, who act under Rael's authority. Rael, or Claude, is the so-called guide of guides and is seen as the leader of the spiritual movement. They have two main missions they work each day to accomplish. 1, spread the message of Elohim, and 2, build the Elohim embassy. Since his first meeting with Yahweh, why would they need an embassy?
This is a big thing.
Okay, whatever. Since the first meeting with Yahweh, Rael has stressed the need to build the Elohim an embassy for their future arrival on Earth, which is currently set for the year 2035, a year in which Rael himself will be 88 years old and most likely dead, which is obviously convenient. So he'll have enjoyed the spoils of operating a cult for 50 or so years. 60 years. And then he'll just die probably a few years before they're expected to return, so he doesn't have to deal with the repercussions of a disappointed cult base.
I'm proud of him for doing that.
Yeah,
it's so dumb to me that there is a bunch of cultists out there that say, "Oh, the world's going to end on Tuesday."
Exactly.
Why set yourself that day?
We actually talked about this specifically on the Heaven's Gate episode of Red Thread previously. The cult leader in that circumstance would constantly say, "Guys, just believe me, in 3 months, the aliens are going to show up at this position." And then they would all go camp out at that area, wait multiple weeks for it to happen. And of course it didn't happen. And they'd be all like, dude, what the fuck? You said there were going to be aliens. And he would then say, oh, never mind. They're telepathically messaging me. They're going to be here in this new spot in 6 months' time. And then they would just keep doing that, just stringing them along. I don't know why you would choose a date so close to, to reality.
It's
any ideas?
Do they think it's going to happen?
Yeah, that's going to be the only explanation, right? Again, like 10% of them has to believe themselves that it's an actual thing that will happen.
So this guy is cognizant enough to know that he is running a scam.
Yes, exactly. This to me is an example where I think, or it's evidence that he knows that there's no part of him that believes the stuff that he's espousing, right? It's very clear that this is all a scam, and he knows it's a scam 100%.
I got to say, I do like the scammers more than the deluded, because the deluded ones is kind of like, but that doesn't add up. But this he's thought of like little loopholes for himself.
Yes, but at the same time, he claims that Jesus is his brother. So, like, there's a lot here.
Yeah, but you can't disprove that. You have no evidence to counter that, Jackson.
Damn, I hate that you're right.
I won't stand by as you just keep derailing his message.
All right. Take us on to the dark part. We're in the dark descent part of this chapter, this document.
All right. Look, so far, this was pretty much like that episode with the guy that said that he was part of like a time-traveling operation with Obama.
Oh, see, I said it was goofy. I said it was goofy to start with.
Yes. Here we go. All right. Claude, now fully embracing his prophetical name, Rael, dedicated his life to spreading the message of Elohim. He wasted no time reaching out to media publications to tell his story about his experience meeting extraterrestrial life, using the sensational hook of himself seeing a UFO with his own eyes to capitalize on the momentum of the UFO sightings in France at the time. He immediately started to write his first book, Le Réveil qui de Leverte, roughly translated to The Book Which Tells the Truth.
By the way, that's where we got most of our information for this document.
The Book Which Tells the Truth?
I mean, it's in the title.
What a source.
It's in the title.
What a source. It's like as ironclad as you can get.
Yeah.
It's like looking at Nelson polls, This is the gold standard.
It's like, I was reading through it. It's like 400 pages long, all written by him, all about his experiences with the aliens, the Elohim, as well as, exploring the belief system of Raëlism. So, if you want to get converted and you want to sign up for Raëlism, go read that. It's all
free on his website.
Yeah, it's all free on the website. It's all lunacy, but hey, it's available.
It's all lunacy, so it's not well written.
No,
that's the whole thing. Apparently, L. Ron Hubbard's books are not a bad read.
No, it's not poorly written by any means. Like, he was a journalist, so he's pretty, decent at writing, let's say.
Okay.
It's not like it's filled with grammatical errors or spelling mistakes and stuff. I think it has also been professionally edited and published, so,
Right. Look, I got to say, it's not good. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover. I'm well aware. but it's not great when the book is called The Book Which Tells the Truth, because it's so... You may as well call the book This Definitely Happened, you know? It's like
Source
it's a
me.
joke title. Yeah.
Yeah.
Source me.
Yeah, but what if the book really does tell the truth? Then he's just being honest.
He thought about this and then he ended up changing the name of the book.
Coward.
Ooh. Well, I guess we're going to have to find and figure out what it is. But we are going to figure out what it is later on, yeah?
In the very next
In the
sentence,
next
in fact.
sentence.
Oh, my God. Okay, so we just talked for like 20 minutes. Okay. He would distribute his book amongst UFO conventions, bookstores, and public lectures, trying to get the book into as
You
many hands
skipped the
as possible.
sentence.
You missed it.
Oh, my God, did I?
The very next sentence, you skipped it.
Oh, the latest edition is now called Intelligent Design Message from Designers.
Message from the designers, yeah.
Yeah, look, I think that you should just stick to Intelligent Design. That's a good title.
Yeah, it doesn't need a subtitle.
Nah, the subtitle cheapens it.
Well, actually, it kind of sounds like a AutoCAD kind of tutorial, like a workshop tutorial, like some kind of actual, textbook about learning software or something like that instead of, something about cults or a cult.
All right, titles. Let's go right now around the circle. First thing that pops to your head. What have you got?
A Man's Embrace with Faith.
Oh,
How
dude,
am I
that's
supposed to
not
top
bad.
that?
Yeah, you're not going to. You're not going to top it. There's no way.
I thought the
That's
job
not
was just to
happening.
come up with whatever comes up in your head initially. That's what came up with. He said, "Now I've lost all my words." That's what I came up with. That's what immediately hit my head. Just say whatever's in
I've
your
got
head.
mine. I've got mine that popped into my head. I'll say it, but Kira, you say yours.
That's good.
It's anything. The first thing.
Oh my
Is that what
God.
we're gonna
Yeah. That's a good title.
It's actually not bad for somebody making a lot of
Yeah.
outlandish claims.
Yeah, I mean that's what he'd be saying as well himself, trying to convince everyone.
I don't know. Yahweh and me. The true story.
Yeah, that's cool.
I actually
That's
like
pretty cool.
Yahweh.
A story of self-discovery.
Yeah.
What about it's Yahweh or my way?
Yeah.
Fuck.
No. It has to
good.
be. It's Yahweh or the highway.
Yeah,
it has to be
that's what I was
that
thinking,
because
yeah.
he's saying if you're in the outside, you're going to be killed.
Yeah. What's yours?
These are bad. Honestly, all these titles are better. But mine was just this is the worst, easily by a mile. It's just yes, I am Jesus' brother.
No, that's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah, straight to the point. You don't even need to read. You didn't even need to read anymore after that. It's effective. It's official.
No, yeah, exactly. He was also frequently interviewed by those of the media, which helped him spread his word to the people at home. He first came across a humble, reluctant man.
That's what.
You know,
That's how I see him. Yeah, that's the impression I got too.
He announced a conference that was to be held in Paris of 1974. It was designed as a venue for Raël to spread his word to as many people as possible. This was successful, as even if people didn't actively believe him, people were curious enough to at least listen, particularly when he dressed his message around extraterrestrials and UFOs. Yeah, there you go, Jackson. You were right. The
Almost like
conference was
I've
held
read this before.
Right, yes, of course.
It all makes sense now.
Yeah, that is starting to connect.
I get the benefit of having read this before we record to make myself look smarter throughout the episode, and still I fail at every corner and come across as stupid. That's an impressive feat in of itself.
Yeah, you've been given, what's the opposite of a handicap?
Advantage.
You're one of those golf players that doesn't get the handicap. That's you.
Advantage.
You get that's right, advantage. That's it. Fuck, I need an advantage too.
Dude, I feel like my brain is just not working today. Like words are just not coming to my head.
That's what happens when you read a lot of, let's be honest, nonsense.
Yeah, nonsense.
That is an occupational health and safety hazard of both of your guys' job.
Well, and
Is
yours.
to sit there and research a man sitting there saying, yeah, and then I had tea with Jesus, and Buddha came in, and then these robots sucked our dicks. It was like,
Yeah, it's like at some point you're like, fuck, what even are words? What am I reading? I wouldn't have it any other way, though.
At best, there was more than 2,000 people who visited. A few of these were sold on the idea of Raëlism and joined Raël on his journey. This naturally led to them covering others, converting others, and expanding outwards from there. By the end of that year, the Raëlian movement was said to have had around 170 members in total. It's an okay strike rate. Raël gathered membership fees from his initial members, and with his little savings he still had left from the magazine, he bought a small plot of land the group elected to name Eden. It was here that the movement would truly begin.
I just fucking hate that shit where, like, he has infinite room kind of to do, like, just create really cool stuff. If you're going to create a cult, go wild with it, you know? But instead, he's just using the Bible and all these already established, like, names, titles, allegories, concepts. Even the fucking alien that walked out of the spaceship was just humanoid. Like, where's the creativity? That's what's more offensive to me. Not that these cults exist. It's just they don't do anything cool with it.
Yeah. But I'm starting to think maybe it's because that's a feature. You know?
Yeah, it's more
Like,
effective.
if you want to start up a good, successful YouTube channel, it's a safe bet to just talk about drama heaps, you know?
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
the same thing, I think, with this.
Yeah, you got to operate within the framework.
Cult, in the framework. I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting way to do it. Your general gripe is more or less that he has decided to build a business as opposed to create art.
Yeah, I'm more offended about that. Like,
I'm quite offended by it as well. I'm with you.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like an original cult.
Nah, there's
Like,
nothing original
where's the
about it at
passion?
all. I haven't seen it yet.
Well, you're about to get. There's about to be a lot of passion.
There's a lot of passion. Yeah. To become a member of the Raëlian movement, you had to go through the initiation rite, which they called the transmission of the cellular plan. Cellular, in this case, referred to the cells in the human body and the genetic makeup of an individual.
Yeah, it doesn't refer to like an actual mobile data plan or anything. That's what I thought when I first read transmission of the cellular plan. I was like, so he transferred from Vodafone to Optus?
Yeah.
Like, okay. Those are telecom companies over in Australia, by the way.
Yeah, couldn't name any American ones.
Yeah, Verizon and T-Mobile.
T-Mobile.
T-Mobile or T-Mobile? I don't know.
I like Optus better.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just saying it over and over again. I like Australian businesses more than American businesses, and I stand by that it has nothing to do with 30 years of cultural conditioning.
You can't blame us.
Through the initiation process, new members were instructed to leave behind all of their previous religions, and they were also instructed to create a will that would leave all of their assets to the movement upon their death. After Raël had the second encounter with Elohim and was taken back to their home planet, some members decided to opt out, as this story was finally becoming a bit too much for them to rationalize.
I'm curious what my out would be. Like, at what point would I start to think, maybe this is too much? Like, I'm curious about like when people would have started to like kind of shift out of the group as more and more things started to come into play. I don't know.
Yeah, that's always a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah.
When do you quit? It's because going into it, you have to buy in a lot.
Yes.
It's really strange to think, oh, wait, you talk to Elohim again? No,
that's too far.
I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, you're too far. You've killed it.
Yeah.
Look, that's what it's saying. Essentially, Raël went too hard, too fast.
That's another concept that these cult leaders bank on, is that element of sunk cost fallacy, right? These people have bought in too much. They've already committed too much of their life to the cult, to the ideology that the cult spreads and speaks of. And they've, in many cases, also they live on the commune, or they've sunk all of their life's resources and money into it. At some point, it becomes impossible for them to justify leaving, right? So that also plays tricks on their minds.
Yes. But unfortunately, not hard enough, as many others became more passionate with this new visit. One of the biggest things that Raël pushed in his movement was sensual meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. His rationale was simple. The Elohim wanted humanity to follow in their footsteps of sexual exploration. Raël outlined from early on that this was an important part of Raëlism, and that sensual meditation became common practice to transmit telepathic links with Elohim. The meditation was usually a group activity with all members laying or sitting in a dimly lit room. A Raëlian guide would then instruct the meditation, beginning with the simple acts of meditation. This involved deep breathing exercises. Once everyone was relaxed, they were instructed to remove their clothes. Members were instructed that any feelings of psychic abilities or sexual arousal was a good thing, as this meant that they were connecting with Elohim.
Oh, I'm getting a message from Elohim right now. I got a boner.
Yeah.
What a dumb concept.
Yeah. The antenna. Is the antenna beaming up? I can see it. It makes sense.
Yeah, that is good.
The thing about this is always you sit there and you think, yeah, an orgy. That sounds cool. And it's always just a bunch of hot chicks and black guys with afros. Like, it's going to be like that, yeah. But there's no way that that's the case. There'd be some 80-year-olds in there.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, yeah, but he's also the leader of the cult, so he could just be like, to the 80-year-olds, you got to go do cult stuff somewhere else right now. You know, like he's the one choosing who's in the orgy.
Oh, no. Imagine being rejected from the orgy. That's even worse. Imagine if it was just you. Everyone else is in on it.
Oh, that's gonna suck.
I'm sorry, Suel. You're gonna have to leave and do the dishes.
That's too much. That's a life worth of pain right there, being rejected from an orgy. Because first of all, you have to build up the confidence to even put yourself in that position where you're at an orgy, and then also to just get rejected by people who are actively having sex with literally everyone. Oh man, that's gotta hurt. Let us know if you've been rejected from an orgy.
From an orgy. Have you been rejected from an orgy?
We want to hear your story.
Totally. They would fully and thoroughly examine their naked bodies, with members being instructed to cohort their bodies in such a way that they could stare into their anuses through a mirror. What? I don't even know how that works.
That's where Elohim lives.
In the anus. Wow. What a beautiful place this
you telling
planet
me,
for the gods is.
You telling me you've never contorted your body in such a way that you can stare at your anus through a mirror before?
Maybe if I'm checking for worms.
What the fuck?
I'm trying to think how that works. I can't.
You just put yourself in a pretzel.
You put yourself in a pretzel.
Yeah, you do it. You got to do it every night. Make sure that you're going to bed clean and safe. It's so fucking like, how do you even bring that up in a group setting and be like, yeah, everyone stare at your asshole now?
I don't know. I don't know why that's important to contact with aliens.
Well,
aliens seem to be pretty obsessed with our anuses, don't they?
Yeah, probing a lot. But also maybe spiritually, it's like your third eye.
I can't believe that the third eye's a brown eye. I thought it'd be a lot better than that.
Yeah, you always have the concept of the eye opening on your forehead. wrong area of your body.
Wrong way, buddy.
Yeah.
You've got it all wrong.
You're going to need a mirror.
Hey, Jackson, there's your creativity.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty... I wish I could say that was creative, actually. This happens a shocking amount in other cults as well.
Does it?
Yeah, this kind of stuff absolutely does.
Well, just a lot of show me your anus.
Yeah, and not even just cults. Like a lot of... There was a YouTube predator named Austin Jones, a Minecraft... Oh, no, he wasn't a Minecraft predator. He was a singer in the early 2010s on YouTube. I guess you could say he had a cult-like impact on his young fan base, and he would solicit young impressionable fans to basically send him videos of them, spreading their butt cheeks and showing him their arsehole, and also like requested they like look at their arseholes and things like that. I don't know. There was a whole lot there. That was Austin Jones.
I wonder why they always want them to look at their own arsehole.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like the act of getting them to do something in general. I don't know.
Oh, okay. There's a lot of things you can get someone to do, though. It's always just like, yeah, right there. Just stand there.
Something productive, maybe.
Yeah. The culmination of these spiritual and sensual meditation sessions was always group sex. Polyamory was seen as okay in the movement. In fact, it was expressly encouraged and recommended. Jealousy was not tolerated and is seen as a prohibitive emotion, with the idea that if you were jealous, that was an indicator that you were not fulfilled, and only those that were fulfilled would be seen as spiritually clean enough to meet Elohim. The principle didn't apply to Raël, however. who was the only one allowed to touch Marie, his wife, Raël also was allowed to sleep with anyone he wanted, though, and he began to sleep with hundreds of women in the commune. Marie knew these trysts and would often be in the same house when Raël was spiritually emptying himself. She was expected to clean up after her husband. Wow, what a life.
Yeah, that's gotta suck. After a long day of looking at your own arsehole, you're told to clean up your husband's spunk from one of his orgies. Gotta suck.
It's so strange as well that in every cult, the cult leader always gets to have these mad sexual exemptions that no one else is allowed to have.
Well, he's literally Jesus.
Yeah, but I don't remember reading that in the Bible, that it was just like, no one touch Mary, but I'm allowed to touch her. Is it that's all good?
It is always like, I'm the coolest guy at school kind of attitude. Like, yeah, they like build themselves up to that level where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm the only one who's allowed to do anything. But it works.
That's the weird part.
Yeah.
I really
It's not
don't
so much, it's
understand
not
that.
so weird to me that this guy who grew up in a fatherless household, who had a less than favorable view on women growing up, as well as the fact that he was shunned by women, would lead to him having this kind of like objectifying view of women, which would then, lead to him doing this kind of stuff. That's not so much surprising. It's the fact that he's not like a particularly attractive or charismatic sounding dude to me, to the point where it's like, why did people like fall for this?
I don't know.
I think it is just
It might just be because, like, I don't know, life can be very meaningless if you want it to be. I think that might be it.
Yeah, I think, I think it's my narrow view of just how many people there are out there and how many different life experiences other people have gone through that would put them in a situation where they are more kind of receptible to something like this or someone like this. And my idea of what a charismatic individual is probably very different to a lot of people's idea of what a charismatic individual is. And he was also obviously very good at manipulating people. So that's probably the reason, or the answer as to why he was able to accomplish what he
But
set
you're
out
right,
to
though.
do.
Like, maybe that is just a trope of cult leaders that doesn't necessarily have to be true. They don't all have to be Jim Joneses and Charles Mansons.
No.
Maybe a lot of them are just quiet dudes that this guy really doesn't seem like he can, stir a church sermon, does it?
No, but I think like you only really it's a numbers game. Like you only need a relatively small amount of people initially, and then you just let them do the work basically of cult outreach. And once you've kind of established yourself as a group with a commune, you kind of have this element of appearing legitimate, I guess, which kind of does the work in of itself. Like other people look at you having amassed a group of people, and you now have this air of legitimacy that other people will now kind of just look at and be more kind towards in terms of their thinking.
It's a good point.
So if you wanted to start a cult, you only need 10 people.
Dad, I'm really starting to think about it. You really wouldn't need much, would you?
No.
You just kind of need the balls to say, I'm the chosen one.
Exactly.
That's really all that you need.
all
And then after that,
it's all a mindset
build
thing.
itself.
It's all a mindset thing.
It's all a mindset.
You need to believe that you're Jesus' brother first.
Or, I think not even that. It seems like this guy just says it. You just have to say it.
Yeah.
And then you get have sex with literally hundreds of women and inherit the property of thousands of people.
Yeah, it's that easy.
It's that easy. Incredible.
The one trick the government doesn't want you to know about.
Yeah, well, kind of. Yeah, I mean, the government is always out to get them, so that's true.
Rightfully so in many cases, actually.
Don't you reckon? Yeah, I think maybe it's probably a good idea that they have agencies that are keeping an eye on these guys.
Yeah, there should be a dedicated task force for cults that make people stare at their own assholes for 10 hours of the day. I'm okay with that one being squashed.
Yeah. The hierarchy of the movement began to very quickly click into place. Raël was the ultimate leader as the messenger of Elohim, of course, and he was seen as a Messiah figure. His word was seen as the word of God, essentially, and if he wanted someone, they had to give themselves to him with no questions asked. At the risk of being ostracized if they disagreed, he began to call himself a messiah openly, and he quickly took on the appearance of a cult leader, choosing to wear only white robes alongside an enormous necklace. It is huge. And sporting the symbol of Raëlism, everyone else existing beneath their control. The guides were chosen for the guides were tasked with enforcing his word. And the guides were chosen for their dedication and belief in the movement. But it also helped if you had a lot of money. Yes. Those with wealthy backgrounds were given express passes through the hierarchy. Raël saw their wealth as something the movement could benefit from. Yes, I would see that too. They also got benefits like sensual meditation with anyone they wanted, and they were also given a level of responsibility within the movement. The plans for the embassy were starting to be communicated to Raël from Elohim, who stated that it must be built in Israel.
Wait. So we've already determined that the Elohim transmit their information through boners. Was Raël just getting mad stiffies constantly with these Israel embassy plans? Is that the way that he was being communicated?
I guess so, yeah. All these circumcised dicks getting hard with each new member. Incredible.
So an embassy in Israel.
Look, if you're going to build a communication embassy based off aliens that seem to really like you being religious but don't like being religious themselves, Israel would be the place to do it, surely.
Well, I mean, Elohim, Yahweh, a bunch of
what are your choices? That or Brooklyn?
Well, his entire religion is basically built off, the Jewish faith in of itself, like Hebrew faith. So why not Israel at that point?
Exactly. Raël set to work to try and contact the government to begin planning, but they never responded.
A flaw in my plan.
Yeah. The Elohim communicated with Raël, again telling him that the plans changed after the Israel government chose to ignore Raël. It's so good. These mind-controlling aliens.
This was too
Change
much.
Of plans. Change of plans.
So the hierarchy.
Too much effort.
The hierarchy for galactic control is the Elohim, and then on top of that is the Israeli government. They're the ones with all the true power.
The conspiracy's real. Incredible. and how's this as well? How good is this? Now they have declared. They've told Raël that seeing as the Israeli government chose to ignore him, they've now decided that the embassy can build anywhere Raël wants.
Oh, that's convenient. It's all leave it up to him. And then this is
lowered the bar.
This has probably already been on screen by now, but we've got a picture here of Raël in his white robes and enormous fucking necklace. And again, looking at him, what do you see in this man? Why him?
I don't know, but I honestly do think that walking around in those robes is quite authoritative. Is anyone walking around in those robes, you're like, well, he must be a holy man.
Well, no, I think he's like a space wizard or something, first and foremost.
Wizard.
Or maybe he took a wrong left turn and he was intended to go to Comic-Con or something like that. I wouldn't think I need to give this guy all of my life savings and pose naked for him.
That's true, but keep in mind, Comic-Con didn't exist at this point, so you're only left with the option of space wizard.
True.
I would give my property to a space wizard.
Yeah, but I would ask for proof first, make a cup float
that you
or something.
Are? Yeah, true. I mean, his proof so far is I've seen an alien god twice.
Yeah, but
it's not nothing.
There's nothing in the world where if someone said something like that to me, I would just believe them at face value, right? Like if my mum said that to me, hey, I just saw a UFO outside and an alien came out and, said that I'm actually Jesus' sister. I wouldn't just believe her at face value. I'd ask for a bit of proof from old mumsy.
Yeah, I really don't understand that type of person. I have met them. I have met extremely gullible people.
I'm gullible, but that's like a new level of gullible, I think.
Isn't it? Oh, I'll give my property over to this guy purely because he's wearing admittedly pretty sick robes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I would very much like to walk around like that. it looks very comfortable.
It does. It looks like a bathrobe. It looks really cushy,
doesn't it?
Yeah,
it's not bad.
And the necklace. I'm not a big fan of accessorizing in terms of like jewelry and stuff. So not a big fan, but it does go pretty hard. That one.
It helps.
Yeah, it looks.
If it was
pretty,
just white by itself,
yeah,
you would just look like you're wearing a doona.
Yeah, exactly.
You need something to pop
or an hoodie. Yeah, you need this little, the bling aspect of it.
In 1978, a few years into the proliferation of Raëlism movement, something happened that shocked the entire world. The mass death of Jonestown. Ooh. We have a Red Thread episode on Jonestown already. But if you want a quick explanation, a cult leader chose to sacrifice his entire commune in a mass suicide event and that claimed the lives of hundreds. This event was so impactful that it forced governments across the world to closely inspect spiritual movements operating within their borders. Damn it, his business prospects are foiled again by government intervention. Damn red tape. And Raëlism was no exception, as they now entered the French government's radar. This didn't deter Raël or the movement, though, feeling empowered by the new attention, who began to focus their efforts on building the embassy and further spreading the word of their mission.
The mission to look at anuses.
Attention. Yeah, what a mission, eh?
Yeah. It's just so fucking dumb.
So much money and resources. Yeah, just
all spent.
Nice. Yeah.
That's a nice chocolate starfish.
Yeah, that's it. That's all they seem to have been doing so far. Like, that's the only action, spreading ass cheeks.
Well, the other objective of building an embassy failed, so...
What else is there to do?
Yeah, what else is there to do?
The attention from the government had the unwanted effect of actually promoting the movement to those who may never have heard it without scrutiny.
Yeah. It's kind of that thing where, like, as soon as the government starts taking it seriously, they actually give it an element of power. Because
the Mandela effect.
Yeah. Is it the Mandela effect? Is that what it is?
Is it? No, Streisand effect.
Yeah, Streisand effect, yeah. Where there's an argument to be made that if people just ignored the thing, it would just die out. But by making an actual, event or giving it that level of legitimacy by acknowledging it, more people are more likely to then, look into it and be convinced by it. Kind of like what we're doing right now. Check them out at Raëlism.com.
It's still going.
Yeah.
Building the embassy was not going to be an easy task, and they needed more money than they had. With a large influx of members, Raël decided that all members must donate 10% of their earnings to the movement. Raël claims that he does not get a salary from the movement, which is a non-for-profit organization. The Raëlism website explains that a separate entity called the Raëlian Foundation supports Raël's lifestyle, and if members wish to donate to him, they can. He claims he lives modestly. Many have contested this claim, with many first-hand accounts suggesting that he lived quite lavishly always. I am but a humble man.
Yeah, flying private.
For the movement.
Yeah. It's always that. It's always the the televangelists who all have private jet fleets and live in mansions, espousing how humble they are and how God wants them to live that way, but it's not a sign of greed. No.
Some of this money that he was taking went to his second attempt at a racing career, with a lot of money coming directly from wealthy people in the movement who saw it as a way of advertising the movement to the public, to the general public. His second stint as a professional driver didn't necessarily impress, however, as his best finish was apparently third place in GT1 in Lime Rock, with the Mulsa Raptor in 1997 and seventh place, finishing at Watkins Glen with a Viper GTSR in a 1999 FIA GT race. Look, Jackson, does that mean anything to you at all?
I know what a Viper GTSR is, and I know what I know that third place and seventh place is not that great. I mean, third place is decent. Mm-hmm. Like, that's a podium, but seventh place is like, well, it depends on the race format, but yeah, not anything to write home about.
Well, a Viper GTSR is a cool car. It looks like that 60s anime speed racer.
Yeah, I mean, a GTS, a Viper is a cool looking car for sure. It's like kind of an iconic one.
Wow. So he's still going hard.
Yeah, I mean,
look at him. Yeah, he's in a neck brace. What the hell?
a neck brace. No, that's just
I think.
that's for the race car. That's what they use in the racing car to keep their head safe.
It protects their necks from rolling.
No, what
around.
that is actually a neck brace.
Okay, so it's like a preemptive neck brace.
That's a neck brace that because he's got a neck injury from looking down at his anus for too long.
And yet he drives.
Just real quick, the claim of him living modestly but also competing in the most expensive sport in existence. Really, like motorsport is incredibly expensive to compete in. Like that is pretty clearly not a modest life if you're competing in motorsport. If you have the funds to do that.
Yeah, my big guess though is he siphoning out of the fund to build the giant utopia, or are people just donating so much to him because they love him? I'm guessing he's siphoning.
Both.
Yeah, the consensus that I was kind of reading was both. People think that he was taking more, or he was taking funds out of the Raëlism movement, but also wealthy people were donating large amounts to fund the racing career that he had.
It could have also been like sponsors and stuff as well for the racing career specifically. But yeah, I don't doubt that wealthy people within the Raëlian movement were donating directly to him for his lifestyle. I mean, is there any difference between like that and Twitch streamers and people donating to Twitch streamers? Not really. It's not surprising that people would donate to him.
Yeah, that's true. Look, as soon as you just contextualize this whole thing as Twitch streaming, everything makes sense. The group was recruiting more and more members every year, but their practices, specifically the central meditation of Raëlism's view on child sexual education, brought in some incredibly disturbing people. In a disturbing turn of events to this story, now is the time to talk about Raëlism's more sinister beliefs. In particular, Raëlism believed that children need to be aware of masturbation and taught how to do it from a young age. In fact, encouraged that they be shown by adults in the movement. Sexual activity and gratification for underage children was encouraged. Raël believed that laws that prohibited sexual activity between underage and adult people should be removed. And Elohim believed that sexual activity should be free to anyone.
Well, that went from 0 to 100 real quick. That's extreme.
So he was a pedo.
I mean, it's alleged, but if the stories are to be true, people. Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, no, he did marry underage people. Yes, then yeah, he's a pedo.
Underage is in 16, or underage is in like
16.
9?
16.
So, damn, dude.
Yeah.
This is something that I don't think that you see that often in a cult.
No, it does happen quite a bit in cults. They're so secluded from. Well, when you think about cults, they're usually in, isolated communes where they're kind of, no one like snitches or anything usually. So there are a lot of rampant sex abuse things that occur at these cults, and they're all brainwashed. So yeah, absolutely, and yeah, you do see that a lot in cults.
I can't believe that you would set up an entire cult just to go there. Or maybe it's like a thing that happens later on.
No,
because you're just getting away with everything, and so you're like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they build up to it for sure. The test that's just how the like brainwashing works. You don't go from 0 to 100 like that and expect everyone to be on board with it. It has to be a gradual kind of process. But at the same time, these people are so, like, cult leaders, definitely a lot of them go in with the intention of creating an environment where they can get away with abusing women and children.
So that's the general move, is it?
I mean, it depends on it definitely depends on the cult. Like, there are definitely cults out there that operate entirely on the basis of just siphoning money from people. But especially in the sex abuse related cults, yeah, it's that's the intention.
Raël practiced what he preached, unfortunately, and at some point, he and Marie divorced, and he went to marry his second wife, Sophie, when she was just 16, only to divorce around 9 years later to marry another underage woman. These marriages protected him against the law, as he couldn't be punished for sexual activity with a minor if they were married. Damn.
Found the
Surely
loophole.
they've put that. Yeah, they must have fixed that loophole. Again, it was the 70s. A lot of this stuff just wasn't. You know what's really, really strange that I think about now? The generation before us, if you go to like a country town or something like that, they're just like, yeah, don't go near old man Jenkins. He's like, he's dirty, that one. You know, and it's just kind of known that there's like a pedo in town.
Yeah.
It didn't have the same implications that it does now. So I can't imagine that like in 70s France, they were just like, yeah, but they're married. So I could see it happening.
I think definitely like that wouldn't have been looked at like a guy marrying a 16-year-old in France. I don't think it would have been scrutinized as heavily as it would be now, for sure. But
no way, not a chance. I think to this day in France, it wouldn't be as scrutinized as it would be here.
Yeah, probably not. Or Europe in general, since
Just Europe in general.
age of consent is much lower. But I think it has shifted. Or at least I'm getting this from online sources and the sentiment online, which is heavily Americanized. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Like, bad to me, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, fair enough. Some crucial members of the movement joined around the time, including a woman named Bridget Boussilier and her husband and kids.
Bussy.
I think it's also Brigitte.
Brigitte?
Brigitte.
I think it's
it would be
Brigitte.
Brigitte.
Brigitte Boussilier.
Brigitte was a biochemist who had been working as a research chemist and sales manager, but while the movement was building at this time, some former members were also beginning to go to public with their experiences Raëlians.
Experience as Raëlians, yeah. An ex-member named Jean Parage. You can take over again, Jordan. Jean Parage claimed that their family were held as prisoners and were treated like criminals during orgies and sacrifices that involved children at a sensual meditation camp run by Raël.
Nah, that can't be right, surely. What, they're sacrificing kids?
Yeah, sacrifices is... I don't think there's any evidence for that, right, Kira?
I couldn't really see anything with death and stuff like that.
I could see them getting away with orgies and even the child sex abuse if no one was willing to testify and things like that, but surely if there were sacrifices, there'd be evidence of that, like missing people.
I can't really see anything.
Okay. So that's a wild claim. I think there's enough smoke for the fire that is the child sex abuse claims to be probably true, especially since it is a sex-based cult. Like they openly talk about the sexual well-being and orgies and those kinds of elements. So I think the child sex abuse stuff is way more believable than actually sacrificing people. Things allegedly got so heated that Jean attempted to shoot Raël, but was unsuccessful. Jean believed Raël attempted to break up his family and was angry at the inappropriate activities involving children and went on the talk show, Ciel Mon Mardi.
Ciel Mon Mardi. Oh, that's sick. It's Ciel and Mardi.
What? Yeah, is that what it translates to?
Has to be.
Yeah, it has to be two names, a talk show, where he then aired out all of his anger towards Raël, who was on the show also. Raël
Really?
was... Yeah.
The title of the show translates to Heavens, It's My Tuesday.
What?
Really?
Evans, it's my Tuesday?
Heavens, It's My Tuesday. That's how I imagine they say it.
Okay, Jesus. And they're dealing with child sex abuse claims and allegations on that. Yeah, so this is basically like a Jerry Springer. That's what it sounds like if they had both of them on at the same time.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. Or what's the other guy that you talk about?
Oh, Steve Wilco.
Yeah, this seems like a more
whatever
of a
his name is.
Steve Wilkos kind of show.
Man, it's just this sort of like blasé attitude that French people have to all of like the things that are absolute taboos here.
Mm.
It seems very strange. It's it's Jerry Springer without winding them up so they punch each other in the head.
Yeah.
You just get people on and say, all right, so you are homosexual and you are a neo-Nazi. What do you think? What do you think? Like, that would be the show.
Yeah, it's so non-blasé. Like, yeah, it probably is just on a like morning talk show instead of something like Jerry Springer. It's just like what children are watching in the morning before school. Raël was confronted on this show, and it was here that he was asked directly if they had inappropriate relationships with children within the cult. Raël simply answered yes, offering up the explanation that it was all in the pursuit of freedom, the classic libertarian argument. The argument continued until Jean alleged that Raël encouraged him to have sex with his children, who were aged 6 and 8 at the time, with the further accusation that Raël wanted to join as well.
Oh my God.
Yeah, ew. Very rough. This bombshell I'll go on the record here. This is a red thread controversial opinion. That's bad.
Okay, so you think that's bad. Here, what do you think?
I think it's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
You think it's pretty disgusting.
There
you go.
If it's true, then he should be executed. This bombshell accusation and confirmation from Raël blew the door open on what was happening behind the closed doors at the group's compound, and the French government, who had been watching the cult, now had no option but to retaliate. They took away their tax exemption status and began to heavily monitor the group in an attempt to build evidence against the movement. Public opinion began to shift, with many now seeing the movement as a perverted sex cult. Raëlians were beginning to be individually arrested and charged with sexual offenses towards children. For example, 2 adult male members of the cult were tried in court for raping an 11-year-old girl. So, yeah, people were actually prosecuted successfully for child sex abuse instances within the cult. So, yeah, I mean, clearly this stuff was happening, right? Like, if it was successfully being persecuted, then I think it was probably semi-pervasive throughout the cult. And Raël did seem to have said those things on that talk show. So, yeah. Raël believed none of this was illegal, and all of the children consented to any activity they were involved in. In 1997, he stated that he, quote, always condemned pedophilia and promoted respectful laws that justly forbid the practices that are always the fault of unbalanced individuals. Okay. That's a pretty far cry from what he said on the morning talk show, no?
It's weird.
Yeah. I am assuming that happened after France kind of went hard on him and took away the tax exemption, so he started to play ball, basically, and he came back down to earth.
He definitely, in later years, you guys will see later on that he kind of created this little subsection of his movement called No Pedo. Like, he went hard against pedophilia.
Once he got dinged for it, he went hard in the other way to project that he was a good guy.
Maybe, yeah. Or maybe he has this really perverse, strange, gross idea that what they were doing was not pedophilia because everyone was consenting. Right. Yes. Well, that's what he said, right? Above, he said something along the lines of, that he offered up the explanation that all these relationships were with consent and in the expression of freedom or pursuit of freedom. So I'm gonna assume that he just has a really fucked up, warped definition of what constitutes as pedophilia. He's probably one of those people arguing on Twitter that children can consent, which is obviously a very fucked up belief. Yeah. Raël was facing a big problem. They were losing money and they had no income, as almost all Raëlians had lost their jobs in the aftermath of the criticism. And the French were now highly against the group and were actively trying to dissolve them. He put the little money he had together and decided to move to a small town named Neuville in Quebec, Canada, where he bought another small plot of land. Members that were able to financially move with him came along, as well as his children with Marie, who was still in the movement.
Raëlians in Quebec greeted him with open arms, and Raël, along with about 300 members, moved into this new compound. So he brought along with him 300 members to Canada. That's such a large migration when you think about it. It's not as much as Jonestown, but convincing 300 people to move along with you to a whole new country, that shows the level of, the level of brainwashing on hand.
I interpreted it as some of them being in Canada already.
Oh, he recruited.
Like there were some already there, I think.
Oh, right, yeah, because he had expanded his influence already, right, at that point. Like he was multinational. One of the new projects in Canada began when the group elected to build a museum in 1997 that they chose to call UFO Land. There you go. That's for you, Jordan. We're going to get you season pass tickets to UFO Land.
I'll go.
Yeah. Well, you won't be able to. When it was finally open to the public, it was described as like being on the set of a bad 1950s sci-fi movie. And despite bold visions, think Universal Studios or Disneyland, but for aliens, they were unable to execute the plan. Unfortunately, UFO Land closed a few years later. They did build a giant replica spacecraft that you could climb into, but you were met with nothing inside as the budget had been exhausted. And there's a picture here of the spacecraft replica with Raël standing in front of it, which looks pretty cool, to be honest. That's pretty neat. And there's also a picture that we'll throw on screen right now of both UFO Land as well as the Raëlian compound. And yeah, that Raëlian compound sure looks like he's living modestly, right? It doesn't look like a multi-million-dollar golf resort compound or anything like that. That's a modest home for a working man.
It does look like that.
Yeah, it looks
but
like
with a slightly spacey edge to it.
It looks like a Trump resort kind of vibe. Some, a gated golf kind of facility. 1 month after the world learned about the first cloned living organism, Dolly the sheep, Raël, clearly inspired, set up a company with the goal of cloning a human baby. Raël became obsessed with the idea of cloning, and the company Clonaid was born.
Clonaid.
This is so bad. That's so lame.
Clonaid.
Do you think that there are any ethical issues with cloning?
I mean, there's obviously always going to be ethical issues with it, but there's ethical issues with everything. If they can start cloning organs, and I will go further, this is might be a little cheat loophole. They've figured it out too. It'd be a cool little loophole if you could just kind of transplant your consciousness onto another biological organism of yourself.
Yeah, just create
you can live for as long as you wanted. Then.
Yeah, that's how we live, right? That's how we continue. That's how we could achieve immortality, is if we just keep supplanting our consciousness, whatever that is, into new meat sacks, basically. Like they just clone our body and then bring it over.
It beats getting downloaded into a laptop, doesn't it?
Yeah, I would not want to live in a reality where we're all digitally, like we're in a simulation or we're like in robots or anything like that. It would be cool though if we could just get a new body and just hop in and permanently stay 25. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah. There are some arguments that in the original books Raël wrote, the Elohim never mentioned cloning, but rather lived on by continuously healing themselves, and cloning was only added to the new versions of the book after Dolly the sheep was successfully cloned. He's just stealing shit from everything. Every piece of fiction out there. He really is. Yeah. Everything. He's taking inspiration everywhere. The head of Clonaid was to be the previously mentioned Brigitte Boisselier, the biochemist, along with her research partner, Damien Marsic. I don't know if Damien Marsic is French. Damien doesn't sound like a French name. Major news publications interviewed Raël and Brigitte, pressing them about the activities of Clonaid and their objectives. Their responses were full of confidence, and they set an incredibly ambitious timeline of successfully cloning an adult baby within just a few years. And they had not successfully cloned anything at this point, not even a sheep. So, this was all smoke and mirrors, or just impossible claims. Brigitte tasked herself as being the spokesperson of Clonaid, traveling around the world to promote the company, while it fell to Damien alone to make the technology work. These sorts of things can give false hope to those looking for answers, and this was such a case. A man who had lost his child reached out to CloneAid, where he promised money for research if CloneAid could clone his son back. Raël, undeterred by the ethics of lying to a grieving father, said yes. More began to reach out, desperate and heartbroken, and willing to pay exorbitant amounts of money for the chance of their loved ones being cloned back to life. Raëlian women were told that they needed to be the surrogates of the clones, essentially incubators, with Brigitte even picking out her daughter for the task. That's so fucking morbid. But also, I think the families were paying upwards of like $200,000 as well. So they were making a lot of money from this little scam they were running.
Wow.
Brigitte was invited to speak in front of the US Congress in 2001 about human cloning. She also insisted that Raël was to speak at the proceedings as well. Brigitte downplayed any safety concerns with cloning, and she insisted that any safety concerns that had been observed with animals didn't apply to human cloning. She said that every embryo was screened for genetic issues, so any risk of deformities could be mitigated. She also emphasized the emotional impact of cloning and how important their work was. Raël instead spoke about how cloning could also offer solutions for infertile couples, and that this important scientific work should not be halted. Ultimately, their testimonies only concerned Congress more and the ethical well, yeah, the most obvious outcome happened. Getting two cult leaders up to talk about how this stuff needed to continue was immediately dispelled. So the ethical implications and risks to do with cloning were highlighted instead to Congress as an effect of these two lunatics showing up.
It's incredible.
They passed the Human Cloning Prohibition Act of 2001, effectively banning all forms of human cloning. Brigitte was pretty much disgraced after this too, and she was effectively ostracized from the scientific community completely. What?
I gotta watch that. I have to watch it.
I want to watch the hearing as well. The hearing is public, so you can
especially
go and watch
because you have to look at Brigitte. She looks like a female Frankenstein or something.
Yeah,
she does look like a mad scientist that put her brain into a corpse.
Yeah, she looks like she was cloned from something that went wrong.
Yeah.
Which is all that the Congress needed. They said, say
That's
no
it.
more.
I mean, also, it doesn't help that you have Raël rocking up in his robes.
No, yeah, he couldn't wear a suit or anything. I guess it is a form of a suit.
He's too good for that.
No, he's very clearly still in his cult leader attire. Very reputable.
Talking about the benefits of cloning.
Very reputable individuals. So Bridget was also lost custody of her youngest daughter due to her proximity to the religious group, and her oldest daughter, however, followed her mother's footsteps and is an active Raëlian.
Bridget continued with CloneAid, however, regardless of the controversy and regardless of how ostracized she was. Though it had been months since they did any work after Congress tried to shut them down, Bridget told Damien that a cloned baby was on its way and it was due to be born at Christmas of 2003. Damien was understandably confused. They were not close to being able to clone a human, and Bridget did not understand any of the work, and he was doing... sorry, I'm just trying to adjust here. He was doing and would be unable to do it herself. She explained it was being secretly funded by a very wealthy family, and they had worked hard on bringing this cloned baby to life. She was lying. He knew it, as he was heavily involved in the project.
Wait, so she was lying to her co-director of the company about the progress of the, of the claims, basically?
And he's sitting along going,
this doesn't make
this
any
is great
sense.
news.
Yeah. I can't wait to meet this cloned baby.
And this moment caused him to lose all his faith in the movement.
No.
It's really strange, isn't it? You're right. The off-ramps for people, you never know what it's going to be.
Well, I mean, lying to them directly and then finally figuring out that they were lying. Like, that's such a bold-faced lie, to lie to the guy that you're working with on cloning your baby, that a baby is on its way when he knows all of that information. That shows a level of arrogance that is impressive.
Yeah, I'm impressed. which resulted in him leaving not long after. Bridget announced on the 26th of December at a press conference that the first human baby to ever be cloned was born, and the clone was given the name Eve. I think I remember this.
Yeah, you probably do. That's probably the biggest thing that made headlines for their movement. They had a press conference and everything about it.
The parents of the baby have never actually been seen, as they expressed a wish to remain private, conveniently. This was met with a ton of criticism and ridicule.
Including right here.
Yeah, we continued on with the tradition. Bridget didn't stop, though, and has gone on to claim babies have been born via cloning in different countries over the years, even Australia.
Oh my God, they have a cloning lab here on Australian soil? Maybe that's what's happening over in Pine Gap.
Look, the claims keep getting bolder, don't they?
Yeah. Well,
I don't know why they're saying that now. I don't know what the point is anymore. Maybe just because it does generate headlines.
Yeah, it generates headlines, keeps them in the news, keeps new people signing up to their way of life, their cult. So I think it's like this particular cult operates under the understanding that any news is good news. So they just want to. That's how they get new converts, basically, and new people sending them money.
Yes. Eve is not the baby's real name, just the one the public knows. And Bridget did not want to give away the location of the child, saying in the press conference that she was born in the country she was born. Man, imagine if she's telling the truth.
Kira, what does that mean?
The way she sort of talks about it is funny. It's like she's thinking on the spot of what she should say to make it more believable. So when she sort of says this, she goes, and the baby was born in the country she was born. And it was kind of to try and say, I'm not telling you where she was born, to keep her location a secret.
Okay, so she was just ad-libbing and trying to sound like she was being truthful, but in the process, she said something stupid.
Yeah.
That's the Bridget way.
Bridget also had to attend court due to a civil suit against Clonaid to try and protect the rights of baby Eve. Bridget still hasn't proved the location of the baby, but she did finally reveal it was born in Israel. No one believes her.
Why Israel? What is this obsession with them with Israel?
I don't know.
Yeah, that baby really did need to be born there. Just make it near you.
Yeah. Israel clearly didn't want you in your organization, and yet you keep trying to insert yourself in there.
She couldn't say that the baby was born in America because the civil suit was brought against her was to try and make sure that the baby had rights, like medical rights and stuff like that, because no one knew where the baby was or if it was, safe and had these human rights. So she had to make it far out of the reach so the judge could basically say, I have no jurisdiction there.
Right?
I can't do anything.
Yeah. So because it was born in Israel, it had no rights.
Jesus. Imagine being the lawyer for that court case.
I know.
Can we see the baby?
I mean, to be fair, I would prefer to be a lawyer in those cases than like a case, like an actually sad case where someone was killed or something. At least those ones would be entertaining.
Oh, and just thinking about being in corporate law.
Oh,
basically
God.
Just getting people to sign signatures all day.
Arguing about
I'd much rather be
contracts.
involved in the ethical debates of the first clone baby.
Yeah, that would
that's great.
that would be
Even though
hard.
it clearly doesn't exist.
And it doesn't matter. And you're just listening to an insane person rant. But I do that for free, so.
Yeah, that's your job. So I suppose, you would be into that.
Absolutely. You wouldn't?
It's just, I can't imagine devoting probably years of my life to something everyone in the room knows didn't happen. And acting as if. It's really strange, isn't it? And sometimes you can start telling a lie to the point that it becomes reality, even though there is just an invisible baby there. But that probably will be used in future court cases to determine whether cloned human beings have rights or not. It'll be like in the Raël versus the state case of, it'll be that.
Yeah. cloned baby X345 first state using
First estate.
using precedent of baby Eve. Yeah.
Baby Eve. Rael moved over to his next project, the Order of Elohim, who demanded that he institute an inner organization called Rael's Angels.
Oh, yeah.
This group was a women's-only group that was designed with explicit intent to prepare them to receive extraterrestrials when they landed, to act as hostesses, companions, and lovers to the alien visitors.
What an honor.
And also, again, like preparing their lives for something that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's really strange. It's so many people that are just doing things that everyone knows isn't going to happen.
This person's been trained for 40 years to have sex with an alien when it arrives, and then just that never happens. That's so
Never
sad.
happens. And I think they all know it too.
Yeah,
The
no,
hierarchy
I
is
don't
separate.
think that. I think they know it. I mean, I think they
don't
don't know is what I'm trying to say. I think they think that aliens are going to come and fuck them.
Why would you want an alien to come and fuck you?
Um,
Actually, now that I think
Yeah.
about it, yeah, I'd give it a go. I'd
yeah,
give it a go.
yeah. Why not? Depends on the alien, I guess. If it's just a slightly smaller human, like what Rael was saying, there's no real issue there, right?
I'm not going to fuck one of those aliens.
Oh,
The
you
ones
want
that-
you want the big blobs with the
greys.
tentacles and the million eyes.
Well, there's bound to be a couple of vaginas in there.
Got to find the right fold.
You got to find the right fold. And then, obviously the one that everyone wants is the one that has tentacles for hair for some reason.
Yeah, what is with that? I don't. Actually, I played Mass Effect a lot. I get it.
I don't know what that is. Is that
It's a video game.
a Star Wars rock off? Is it?
No, it's
Oh
a
my
video
God.
game. It's a video game. It's not pornographic. Don't worry.
Right.
I mean, it's pornographic.
There's no need for me to investigate it then. Huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pornographic if you look in the right places.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's some fan fiction about that.
100%. Written by Jackson.
Oh, yeah, hell yeah. Stick, man.
No, not actually.
Ghost name. The hierarchy was separated by coloured feathers. White meant the woman would interact with anyone in the group. Pink meant they were special and destined to be consorts for Elohim and were reserved exclusively for them. Those with gold feathers, though, were handpicked by Rael for himself for their beauty and would be the first humans to greet Elohim. These girls had to have sex with Rael when he asked.
What a trade.
To become an angel, you had to send in a picture of yourself, and if Rael thought you were beautiful enough, he'd invite you to go have sex with him. What is this man's existence? It's like
It's
every 15-year-old boy's dream, and it's just this old, withered man being like, yes.
I was gonna say, you know who this reminds me of? Andrew Tate. Like, it's Andrew Tate before Andrew Tate. It's the 80s version of Andrew Tate.
Does Andrew Tate get to do that, does he?
Get to do that. Yeah. Yes, he
Yeah, he gets to do, yeah, like he says, show me a picture of yourself being hot and I'll judge it. He does that.
yeah, absolutely he does. Well, I mean, he doesn't do that explicitly, but of course people are sending him pictures of themselves, and he has the pick of the bunch.
Yeah. All right, so this guy is just beta Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
More spiritually aligned Andrew Tate.
Well, the only difference is this guy talks about Elohim and all that kind of shit, whereas Andrew Tate talks about the power of being a man. The manosphere.
Look, man, Andrew Tate really doesn't have to get people to jump through many hoops, does he? This guy has to. I
Yeah.
just can't even imagine there being that many people that are into it, let alone that many hot chicks that are into it.
Well, he's got some hot
It's
chicks right there
weird.
in that photo that was showing up on screen right now, no doubt.
But surely those are just Playboy bunnies, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that is Hugh Hefner there, so maybe Hugh Hefner was the only
I
one
hot
with
enough?
Yeah, a gold feather. He was the only one allowed a gold feather.
If you satisfied him in bed, congratulations, you became an angel.
What an honor.
Rael and his angels even met and did a magazine shoot with Playboy. Okay, so they are his angels. Those are not Playboy bunnies.
Yeah, okay, they must be. Yeah, I
There
mean,
you go.
they're not unattractive. Like, could it be a possibility that he doesn't have any cult members and he's just paying these people? Is that at all a possibility?
I don't know how rich he is at this point.
Yeah, neither.
He's rich, all right?
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah. I mean, look at his outfit, and he's hanging out with Hugh Hefner.
Raël has like a list on his website of honorary Raëlians, which is people that are not involved with the movement, but when the Elohim come, like they will be greeted and seen as, you know, Raëlian status. And he made Hugh Hefner one.
Interesting. He must have had a lot of respect for Hugh Hefner.
Yeah.
Is Barack Obama on there?
No, the only other person I remember seeing is Madonna. There was like over 100. But I just remember Madonna.
I can imagine Madonna being into Raëlianism for a bit.
Yeah, I could see her being part of this. For sure.
Look, Hugh Hefner must have got so many honors and titles in his life. Imagine if your entire job was to throw parties for famous people.
Yeah, what even did he accomplish? Just Playboy?
I guess so.
So he just so really nothing. He just like used women and threw epic parties.
I think that's it. I think mostly what he accomplished was throwing epic parties and as a result just getting heaps of social capital.
Yeah, that's all it ever is.
Yeah.
That's the Los Angeles way.
Yeah. He just mastered that. They were against the suppression of feminine acts of pleasure and works to support women in the industry. There are a lot of other causes and groups that Raël has established too, some of them being Go Topless, encouraging women to go topless. Wow. Pro swastika to get rid of the Nazi coronation of the old symbol. Paradism, encourage the scientific progression of robots to do all of humans' dirty work. A newer movement, perhaps inspired by his own troubles, was No Pedo, which was, like no homo, which had the explicit goal of protecting children against pedophile priests.
But it's funny because it's not funny, but he's a pedophile priest.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He hates himself.
Raël wanted to use his group, Raël's Girls, to help in rehabilitating pedos.
Wait, what? So he wanted... Is the concept there like, hey, women of the cult, go have sex with pedophiles to bring them back to liking adult women? Is that what it means?
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Oh my God.
So it's just more... It's just another avenue for him to have sex with chicks in the cult.
Yeah. You gotta have sex with me, otherwise I don't know what I'll do.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll do. Yeah.
It's so fucked. I hate this guy. I hate that he hasn't received any punishments either. Like nothing.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it?
It is. He's so like outwardly gross.
I'm telling you, the 70s was the time to do all of this stuff.
I mean, but this was happening in the 2000s now.
Time.
We're talking about the 2000s and the 2010s.
Yeah, but in the 2000s, he's kind of just saying outlandish things by this point.
Well, no, is he? He's
for media attention.
He's saying we need to help pedophiles by having sex with them.
Yeah, but like you can say that, you know. I don't think that you can get arrested for it or anything.
Oh, well, yeah.
Doing the whole, I'm going to start up a cult and it's going to be rife with sexual abuse and child sexual abuse and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't reckon you could get away with that in the 2000s.
You don't think you can get away with it?
By the 2000s, like all of that would have just been sewed up entirely, surely. It really just seems like in the 70s, it's like what I was saying at the beginning. It's like everyone was into a cult. Like if you were sort of hippie-ish or whatever, you just were there for a bit. Yeah. It's like, I don't know, like at some point everybody just kind of, maybe it was just these guys that just took it to the next level. But it really feels like cult, even just the idea of a cult has a very different connotation to what it must have had in the 70s. Because like my auntie was in a cult for a bit,
what
you
the
know?
Fuck? Okay. A sex cult?
I'm sure it was. They all were, weren't they? Like, is there any other type of cult?
Yeah, imagine joining a cult and it not being a sex cult. What's the point?
Yeah, what a jip. It's weird. It's a weird crossover between spiritualism or something, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I
That always seems to be like a huge element of it.
Oh, it's always the core element. Like, I don't think you can have a cult without, well, especially in the 70s and 80s, they were primarily based around spiritualism. I mean, sure, you've got, again, like the Andrew Tate stuff. It's kind of morphed into just celebrity cults nowadays. It's shifted into that, as well as like get rich quick schemes and things like that. Like sign up for Hustlers University, which is kind of cult like in of itself. But those are all just based around like siphoning money from idiots, essentially desperate idiots. So yeah, I mean it's changed. It's changed, man. It's not like it used to be.
Scenes changed.
Yeah.
Scenes changed.
Yeah.
Rael, however, has been struggling in recent years due to an undercover journalist infiltrating the group for 9 months. The journalist released an explosive expose on the organization. Oh man, I hope there's a documentary on that.
There is, isn't there,
I
Kira?
can't be bothered to read the book.
Yeah, there is a documentary on it. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head.
Recounting stories of abuse and shocking acts from within the compound. It was France all over again. They lost their tax exemption status, members lost their jobs and were ostracized, and the group gained an even worse reputation that they had before. Ultimately, they chose to use the same playbook as before. They fled Canada and arrived in Japan, where the group now operates in Okinawa. Oh, see, the Japanese and the Koreans, they love a good cult.
Yeah, they
love a good cult.
They do.
They
yeah.
really like it. Especially South Koreans. I'll tell you this. It makes a lot of sense because you look at North Korea and the way that is set up is such... It's very culty. It's so culty there. There's a lot of dictators in the world, you know? They just... It really feels... I know because I lived in South Korea for a bit. They really like group activities. They really like a lot of culty-like behaviors.
You lived in South
So
Korea?
it makes...
How long for?
Yeah. Oh, for a year.
Oh.
I did a uni degree where you had to go overseas for a year.
Huh.
And I couldn't be bothered to learn Japanese, and the South Koreans just morph themselves around pleasing white people, essentially. So you can just go there and you don't have to learn a word.
Yeah.
And I do remember that. It's always has that that culture just kind of leans into that. The classic example that I always give is when you go to Turkmenistan. Turkmenistan is very similar to North Korea in the sense that it has a supreme leader dictator that every word that he says is officially law. That's the attitude of that place.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to build like the Wonderland capital city, huge commemorations to himself everywhere. But the attitude of people in Turkmenistan is very whatever about it. It's kind of like, yeah, okay.
So not like North Korea, where in North Korea they literally worship the leader as a supreme leader.
Yeah, they've bought into it. They're really into it in North Korea. You can tell.
So that's the difference
You know?
between the Asian cults, in your opinion.
Well, then, how's this? Do you remember that? I can't believe that I've forgotten his name now. But the Prime Minister of Japan that was killed?
Shinzo Abe.
Shinzo Abe. Well, that was because he was part of the moon cult, wasn't it?
Yes, he was connected to, cult activity. I think that's why he was assassinated by the person. Yeah.
And there was a bunch of other senior politicians that were involved in it. A bunch of other senior celebrities.
Even again in South Korea as well, there are constant government officials being fired or resigning or being ousted from their jobs due to their, shady connections to religious groups within the country or religious cults in the country. Same with Japan. Yeah, it's definitely pervasive. You're 100% right.
God, this really is just the storyline to Spinal Tap. This guy, he's big in Japan.
I just love the fact that they fled to Japan and then immediately... I'm assuming that's when they released that manga, by the way, as soon as they arrived in Japan. And the fact that this pedophile cult now operates out of Japan gives me this, makes me very uncomfortable knowing that they've got a lot of lot of lolicon and things like that in Japan. So it's probably
Yeah, no, honestly, it is the perfect place for them to go. Perfect.
sadly,
Couldn't choose a better one.
sadly, yeah.
Yeah. It's that is really strange, isn't it? I wonder if it's the same thing. If you go back, I'm going to do this in my own time, actually. I'm going to go back and look at the 60s, 70s, and 80s of Japan and South Korea and see if they were as enamored with cults or if this is sort of like a new fever. Because it feels like the heyday of cults in the West, like what we were talking about, is kind of broken. They exist.
Well, you know what I think it is? Spirituality in general is dying in the West, right? We're shifting away from that to more just being hedonistic, and self-actualization is more important than any kind of level of spirituality. Whereas that is very much still alive and well in Asian countries like Japan. Like they are a very spiritual country. That's pervasive throughout the people. So I think they're more susceptible.
Yes. No, they still do believe in spiritual shit, don't they?
Oh, 100. Every single person we met in Japan, even, the less traditional folk, still had certain spiritual traditions that they themselves stuck to. Like there was still, like, one of our tour guides was a guy our age, basically, an educated guy who, for all intents and purposes, was pretty much exactly the same as us in like life position or whatever, like in the same stage of life, basically. Yeah, he would fit in a Western country for sure. Like if I saw him down the street right now, it wouldn't be out of the norm. He would fit right in. Yet he had a shrine at his home that he prayed to every morning before he left the home, basically. So even he was deeply spiritual.
Yes, one of those little Shinto
shrines,
things.
yeah.
Okay.
So very, very much alive.
I guess
and well.
that could explain it, Jackson. That really could.
I really think that is the answer. I think just people with more spiritual inclinations. I'm not saying it's 100% like every spiritual person or everyone who has that, that part of them still alive and well is going to be susceptible to people lying to them. I'm not saying that. I'm not making the claim that all religious people are idiots or anything like that. I'm just saying that I think they have broadly more room to be manipulated because they are already in touch with, they're already in that pool basically of listening to spiritual things. Whereas in the West, people hear like God or those kinds of concepts and immediately plug their ears and ignore it now. Definitely now. Much more common now to just completely dismiss any kind of religion or faith in the West than it was like 30 years ago,
It's not bad. I like it. I like it as a theory. I really do.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it a bit more, but that is my gut feeling.
I'm also just going to put into it the fact that just in Japan and South Korea, it's much more obedient cultures.
Yeah.
There's also that. So it's just you kind of just ignore things that you shouldn't ignore.
Having said that, though, I would think logically that like a culture or a society that is less obedient, because the opposite of obedience is rebelling, and I feel like if a society is more likely to rebel, then they're more likely to believe in fringe beliefs in that situation. They're more likely to.
You're right. That doesn't make sense either because I mean, look. It was the 70s, and these things seem to prey almost exclusively on hippies.
Yes, yeah, who were rebels of the system, essentially.
And going on from what you said about hippies, this movement, if you kind of look into it and go onto their website, it is very much that sort of culture.
That aesthetic.
That aesthetic. And they have like happiness retreats, and it's very, you kind of look at it and go, okay, it seems like this is filled with people who are like
alternate
hippies.
lifestyles.
Yes.
Kira, you know where Mulaney, where we were raised, essentially the city the town that we were raised, it's a very alternative leaning town. It's definitely like a group that I would have seen up there commonly, like I could see them fitting in that kind of alternative lifestyle town, very hippie. aesthetic. If you go on their website, you immediately notice there's just like very flowery imagery, very natural based, aesthetic that just looks like something you would see in a hippie journal, basically. Self-love, man.
It's all
Self-love and
peace.
all that.
Self-love by looking at your own anus. As the years have marched on, however, many Raëlians left the movement. Raël's children grew up and went back to their mother, Marie, who had left many years ago. There had been multiple interviews with Raël's family since the organization had lost its relevancy, and they all pretty much shared the same sentiment. A sentiment that detested who Claude was as a person, a vile, evil man who used others as objects for his own pleasure. Raël still spreads the word of Elohim, though, to this day, with the website promoting speaking events that are coming and still taking place to this very year. He is now 78, and there are only 10 years before the Elohim arrive, and the embassy needs to be built. Time is ticking and the mission doesn't stop. The sad truth is that regardless of how many people don't believe Raël, there are still dedicated followers who hang off of his every word. I imagine it's got to be harder, though, with the language barrier of convincing Japanese people to take on this Westerners, belief system. Because like you said, they are obedient.
Well, I'm just kind of shocked that he's still alive.
But he hasn't died in a tragic orgy accident.
Yeah. I mean, he does look like a very old man in Afghanistan now. Doesn't he?
Yeah. Well, he did during the fucking Congress testimony 20 years ago. I don't know. What does he look like now? Is there a recent photo?
I'm telling you, you look at the photo on the website. Tell me he doesn't look like that.
So there was a short series that came out about him last year called Raël, the Alien Prophet on Netflix. And he definitely, there's some photos. He's aging a bit.
Oh, he looks
he's
bad?
He's now in a tank top. He's got a little straw hat on.
Okay, so how the fuck do you join his sex cult? Like, if he's not even attractive anymore, or if he ever was. Yeah, I don't know. That's got to be difficult for him to adapt to this modern world. He needs to start Twitch streaming. That's my advice.
It's 1 sec before we finish. I need to get this off my chest before we end. Kira, have you heard him speak?
I listened to his thing at Congress.
And is he captivating?
Yes, in the sense where I'm like, wow, you brought this in front of the US Congress. That's kind of embarrassing for you.
So, like, as an abnormality, he's captivating,
Yeah.
not due to his talents.
No, not due to his talents.
Okay. Was he,
No.
as a woman, would you say that he was attractive?
God, no.
Okay. Yeah. Well, as a man, I would say he was very attractive. No, he's yeah. I just don't get it. But regardless, that's the story of Raëlism, one of the more obscure cults, a very interesting addition into the Red Thread repertoire. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely done. There's too much smoke, right? Like, even though none of the claims against him, I don't think were proven. He operated a sex cult where crimes did occur. That much is proven. I do not believe, just due to the amount of character testimony about him, as well as the events themselves and the smoke. I don't believe that he was innocent, and he probably did victimize a lot of people. And it's pretty frustrating that he just gets to live an idealistic, life in Japan now. Without facing any real repercussions. He's pretty much coaxed his entire life off siphoning money from his religious fanatics. Yeah, it's just very annoying when people like this succeed. Any last thoughts from you guys?
Look, it has piqued my interest in cults. It always does. I think that you have really struck on gold on this one, Jackson, because it's the endless fascination of serial killers and cults. I don't know why human beings are endlessly interested in them, but they are.
Would you say? Are you not? Are you not interested?
No, that's what I'm saying. As soon as you do read about it, you think, yeah, but like, what did they eat? And did they have lunch together? Did they ever dance around a maypole? There's many questions to be answered.
Well, it's
That's
like,
what happens every time.
It's inherently interesting looking at the extremes of humanity, either the really good people or the really bad people.
Yeah, but it's not though, is it? It's not interesting looking at the really good people.
No, I mean, it's less interesting, but it's more interesting than looking at normal people like us.
It's more interesting than that. It's definitely more interesting.
Yeah,
that's true.
Human nature. So, any last minute thoughts about Raëlism itself, though? Pretty cool cult.
Well, it's definitely the truth, as was put in the book.
Yes.
So we can scratch that off. I'm glad that he had updated the Bible with its serious blemishes.
Yeah, we really needed a Bible version
the record.
2. Bible 2.0. I can't wait for the third version.
Yeah. Does he have an heir?
Well, he does. Yeah, he's got children, but I think they're estranged, aren't they, Kira?
Yeah, they left.
They were former members of the cult, but then they moved on. Kira, final thoughts?
I think it's crazy, but whenever I read into cults, I always feel a sense of sadness about how these people like Raël or Claude kind of manipulate and abuse people who are possibly soul searching, or maybe they're lost in life and they're looking for something.
Yeah.
And they are manipulated and abused into joining their cults.
Yeah, very vulnerable
sad.
people.
They're vulnerable people, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the true tragic element of it. It's funny to laugh at the dumb cult man, but there are a multitude of lives that he negatively impacted.
Yeah.
Those vulnerable people, though, I think instead of that, self-help is probably the best way, right, Jordan?
Mm.
Oh, always. Yeah, you can come over and join my cult if you want. Look, honestly, I think that's always the thing that scares me about when you look into these cults, is that they do use a bunch of pop psychology to get people hooked in on it.
Mm.
But the thing is, what I will say about that is you can just learn to do those things yourself. Basically, what gurus are doing a lot of the time when they're initiating people into a cult is just getting people involved in peak states. This is something that I hear a lot from people that are in ex-cult members. It doesn't matter if it's Scientology, doesn't matter if it's Moonism or whatever. They always say, yeah, it was very scary on one hand, and on the other hand, I really miss not being in the cult.
Oh, right.
There's a lot of that. Because it's always just like
well.
there's a sense of community that you do not get in the outside world.
Yeah.
The outside world is a lonely place.
Yeah.
And inside the cult, it's not.
Yeah, I can absolutely get why people enjoy being in cults.
There's benefits to it. I think that, like, now that I'm thinking about it, I think a lot of the reason that people do stay around in cults is not because of, like, the belief of getting abducted by aliens or anything like that. It's just that you're hanging around your best friends all day, doing what I guess you would have been doing in the Middle Ages. Like, I'm guessing you do a lot of, like, fucking laundry and, like,
Wood
making
collecting.
bread and shit.
Yeah. It's like it's probably, for a lot of these people who have probably come from troubled homes and troubled personal lives, it's probably like the first positive situation that they can point to with other people who want to support them and seem like they want to build them up, and they have just positive relationships with them.
Community.
Yeah, the sense of community. And that goes down to human nature, right? We are a social creature. We live and thrive of positive relationships with other people. So that just speaks to our DNA, really. So I totally get that.
Definitely does. Hey, I know that we're supposed to be wrapping up here, but can I just quickly tell you something that happened on the weekend?
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, go for it.
I was doing a show up in, no one in America would know this, but Katoomba, it's the mountains above.
Not many
our main
people in
capital
Australia
city.
would know it either.
No, Katoomba, no one knows. Anyway, the point is,
I don't know.
Look, the place isn't important, damn it. What is that I was there with Miss Love, he's a co-host on my other podcast, the Friendly Geordies podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
He knows that place like the back of his hand.
Katoomba native.
He's a Katoomba native. And so he kept demanding that we go to this deli, which I can't think of anything worse. I hate the idea of having pastrami or something for breakfast. It was awful. I was really repulsed by it when I walked in. And anyway, it's called Yellow Deli. And when I walked in, he said, "Come on, Jordan, let's go eat some of these jams from these cultists, these creepy cultists or something like that." And I just dismissed it. And then we walk in, and there is just this glazed over man, hippie with the pulled back hair, the beard, and he's going, "Hey, sorry, it's going to be a 15-minute wait." And then we say, "Oh, okay, whatever." And then we go and have bacon and eggs like normal human beings. Anyway, I'm sitting there and talking to him, and I said, "What do you mean? Like, you just walked in and said, let's make fun of these cultists." And he goes, "Yeah, they are cultists. It is a cult. It is a cult that makes jams, and you give up your entire life, and then you devote your life to just making delicious jams, and they sell those jams across the planet. And everyone's aware that it's a cult. It's a cult that is global, and people just kind of turned a blind eye to the fact that they're just using fucking slave labor at the front because their jams are so delicious."
If you're dedicating an entire life to jam, that's going to be pretty good jam. I might try that jam. Can you tell me what jam that is?
The same thing, aren't you? No, I was thinking of it afterwards. I was like, maybe I should have had that fucking pastrami sandwich.
Yeah, that jam sounds great. So, what was it? A large cult?
It's a pretty damn big cult. Apparently, it's just
cult
across the planet. And this is the whole thing. I said to him, "Weren't you a bit scared talking to this, saying this is a cult while entering the door?" And then he was just like, "No, because they're just so harmless. Like, it's the sort of people that you can kind of just push in their face and sprinkle their head, and it's against their religion to do anything, you know?" So he just goes in there, insults them. So yes, to answer your question at the very beginning of this podcast, Jackson, bullying does exist.
Yeah, and cults are the biggest victim of them. Jam making cults in specifics. That's so interesting, though. A jam making cult in Australia. That sounds like a Red Thread episode in the making. I bet.
Well, it's global as well. So
yeah, I
bet it can be relatable to Americans, unlike Hungry Jacks.
You look at it. You look at it as a harmless cult, but I reckon if you dug a little bit, there would be some examples of some level of abuse within that cult, even that cult.
Oh, trust me, there is, but that's for another time.
Oh, okay, yeah. See, so there's no such. I don't think there's such a thing as a harmless cult. I mean, a harmless cult in that situation is just a company. When you were describing that initially, true. I thought you were just describing a jam company.
Yeah, it's a company with some laxed IR spotty records. That which, you know, really is just our third biggest burger chain here.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck it's called. You're right.
All right. That's going to do it for this episode of Red Thread. Thank you very much for listening. Our show is on Spotify as well as audio platforms. Spotify has video now. You can also watch the video over on Spotify. Not really sure why you would do that, but you can. So if anyone wants to watch the video on Spotify, you can. Other than that, patreon.com/theofficialpodcast or official.men for early access and ad-free access to the shows. About 3 days in advance, you get early access, as well as you can send in questions as well on the Patreon and the official.men, and we will answer them on the episode. In fact, I forgot to do it this episode. I'm going to do it right now. We're going to read a question from the audience. Okay, this one's from Western Philosopher, who asks, "What is the sexiest alien?" Interpret that question however you want. Go ahead, Jordan. Who's the sexiest alien?
We already answered this question in this very podcast.
Well, yeah, but I think he wants
the tentacle head one.
I think he wants a fictional one. Give me an example of an alien that exists in fiction that you can point to specifically that you want to bang.
Yeah, the tentacle head one. I'd definitely fuck that.
You don't even have a name for her. Where's the respect? Give me a name. Like, is it E.T. from E.T.?
Christ, no, I'm not having sex with E.T. E.T. looks like a leukemia patient.
But he's got the finger.
That's true. He does have the magic finger. But it's better for girls, I think.
Yeah, Kira, you're going to have to choose E.T.
You have to choose E.T., Kira. I can't remember what the fuck their names are, but you know what they are. They're
No,
the
I don't.
sex slaves of Jabba the Hutt. Those things.
Twi'leks.
Twi'leks, yeah, that thing.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay,
They're like, what
that's
else
fair.
are you going to pick? That's easily the best one.
Yeah, I was going to choose Asari from Mass Effect yet again, so that would be my choice. Kira?
My God, I don't know.
You've never thought about sexy aliens?
No,
I mean,
I
sexy
haven't.
aliens
You're
are
not going to
pretty...
get better than ET.
I feel like sexy aliens are pretty exclusively a guy thing.
Although I'm sure that there's a smut book about sexy aliens.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah,
not
one of
I
those
don't
book
know.
talk books.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's everything you could ever want in those smut books.
Yeah, Asari's pretty hot.
Did you just look up Asari?
Yeah.
It's kind of just like more of a human Twi'lek, honestly.
It's a Twi'lek that's just got a lesbian haircut, really.
Yeah, a little bit, but they're very, very hot in the games. I think their entire, like, their religion in the games is entirely based around, like, mating with other species as well.
Really?
So that's pretty cool. All right, this one's from Marsh. If aliens showed up tomorrow and said, "Hey, we made you," what would change? So would much change
That's
for you,
so
Jordan?
good.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That was incredible because I remember my editor saying exactly that. He said, I will never forget that. He just goes, you know, perhaps if they exist, then yes, we are the sea monkeys that they bought at their intergalactic news agency. And if that was the case, what would change? Not much.
Yeah. Like, really, what
Just
changes?
Have a bit of an existential crisis, a bit like when you watch Zeitgeist on YouTube when you're 18 and then you get on with life.
I don't think there's existential.
Little
Oh, you mean
sea
if
monkeys.
we're the experiment?
If we're the sea monkeys.
Yeah, okay, that would be existential dread then. But like just aliens showing up in general, I don't think anything would change. Unless they were here to wipe us out or something like that. I think if they were here just in general, I'd be like, cool. That confirms my belief that there is life in the universe. That's really fucking awesome. There would be no level of existential dread there for me. Again, unless they were a threat. If they were a threat, then yes, I'd be scared. All right, and this final, Kira, any input on that one?
I agree with you.
Okay. Fuck, where was this last question that I saw that I liked? Oh, yeah, here we go. All right, so this final question is from member RJ10, and he asks, do any of you guys have any personal experiences with what you would call a UFO or any supernatural encounters?
Yes. Yes, you do, don't you, Jackson?
Me specifically? Oh, you talking about the UFO that I saw in Tokyo?
Yeah, he literally saw a UFO.
Yeah, I remember calling you, or maybe not calling you. I think I called you when I got back from Australia, and that was the first thing I talked about was the fact that I saw a UFO in Tokyo. Kira, you were there with me, remember it?
Can you refresh my memory?
Remember we were in the hotel room in Tokyo late at night. We had ordered some room service, and I was looking out the window, and we saw...
Oh, yes.
We saw those floating white lights in the sky that were
outside.
just suspended in the sky, not moving at all.
Yes,
and I filmed
I
it.
do.
I filmed it for like 2 minutes and it didn't move. And we could come to no logical explanation for what they were because they didn't look like stars
It wasn't a star.
because they were too close. But they didn't look like drones because they weren't moving or hovering or like slightly shifting.
And
They
it
were
was like
just-
too far out.
Yeah, too far out. So UFO is the only logical conclusion. Or it was a planet. Maybe it was a planet. I don't know.
It was a UFO.
I want to believe it was a UFO. Jordan?
Oh, so do I. I really hope that's the case. Look, I have seen said image, and I couldn't identify it with my 0 years in service at airports and being a pilot. I'll tell you this. I have never seen anything, ever.
Oh, that's so lame.
I've lived a very, very, very uninteresting life. But I will tell you this. Now that I am doing my show across the country, you would not believe the amount of pilots that come up to me and show me shit they filmed on their iPhones.
Really?
And every single time I say, do the other pilots believe? And they say, if they've been around long enough, they have always seen some weird shit in the sky at some point.
That's so, yeah.
At some point, they see something that is inexplicable. And radar operators are the same. And it's just so
Military people
common
too.
in our industry that no one even bothers to report it or something. It's just something you take on your phone and you go,
Yeah. I've absolutely heard that airline pilots as well as like military operators, like there is a lot of people coming out of those industries saying that they've seen stuff now. Whether or not that's aliens or like military, high tech stuff, that's the debate. But a lot of smoke currently, let's say. I hope it's true. Kira, have you seen anything outside of that experience in Tokyo, which was absolutely UFOs?
I have this strange memory of when I was literally in primary school and I was staying I was having a sleepover with my friend and we were at her grandparents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and seeing something. And it wasn't like a weird dream. It was kind of like, the only way I can describe it is like a thick blue like wisps in the air. Have I told you this story, Jackson?
No, this is strange.
Oh, it's like, because I forget about it and I only think about it in type of moments like this. And that's the entirety of the memory. Who knows?
What do you mean by blue wisp? Just like
what's a blue wisp?
It wasn't in the sky. It was in front of you.
No,
in like a room.
It was in front of me in the room, and it was kind of like, I can't even
like
explain
smoke?
to you because this would have been over 20 years ago. Yeah, maybe smoke, but it was like thick and quite contained.
Was it in the shape of a humanoid?
No, it was.
Did it look
small.
like Yahweh?
It was almost like a small blob.
It was Yahweh. He's shown up.
No.
You could have been the new prophet.
Wow.
No.
There you go.
Okay.
Who knows? Could have been dreaming, but I have a very distinct memory.
No, I feel like you'd know if that was a dream.
Yeah.
It was probably like
that sounds less
2 years ago.
How long? 20 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay. That sounds less like an alien and more like a poltergeist or something. Some kind of ghost. That's so strange. I've never heard that story before. What else are you keeping from me?
Nothing.
That's it.
You're
that
a cursed
is as exciting
entity.
as I get.
You're bringing ghosts into my home. I'm going to wake up and see that blue smoke eventually. All right. Thank you very much, Patreon members, as well as official.mem members. You can head on over there and sign up to get that early ad-free access, as well as send in questions for next week. You also get to know what the topic is before everyone else, so you can frame your questions around that. Really do appreciate it. Your support means, a lot. It keeps the red lights on. Let's put it that way. I really do appreciate it. You guys, the support over the last few weeks has been phenomenal. Really, really kind. If you could share the show with friends and family, like-minded people, that would obviously be great. That's the main way you can help us out. It expands our reach, basically, like a cult would. So really do appreciate that. Comment below as well, leaving suggestions, feedback, all that good stuff. And check out Friendly Geordies at his YouTube channel. He's got 2 of them. Friendly Geordies deals with Australian politics, as well as Jordan Shanks deals with self-help. It's not a cult. It's actually helpful. A lot of good stuff over there. Go check that out. Both linked in the description. And you can also find him somewhere in Australia. Where's your next tour? Or where's your next show, I should say?
Melbourne.
Melbourne.
I'm there for 3 days.
Yep. Three days? Which 3 days?
Oh, God. Now you're testing me.
Well, I'm saying
Thursday.
that because this episode comes out on Monday, our time. So.
Oh, well, in that case, disregard. I'll be in Sydney.
Sydney. He'll be in Sydney. Are tickets still available?
For the Sydney ones, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, then head on over to friendlygeordies.com. Check out his tickets. He's doing a fantastic live show right now. Contemporaries of ours are calling it the greatest show ever made by a human being. So you should go check it out. Very funny. Lots of cool photoshops in there, I bet. Tickets available at his website, friendlygeordies.com. Go check it out. Links below. Thank you very much for joining us yet again. And we'll see you next time on the next episode of Red Thread. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.